Like, it's an initiation.
Yeah. Never good when you're next to a lawyer.
How's the?
An arm. Typically a regular. That's the city. I've kind of been on. You're right. I've been. We don't have the numbers on those. This one, okay, so it's. I just had road, West Road, that one.
Diamond is.
Here's down.
The stim machine when I pulled up, but I didn't.
I got here a little after you did.
Trail from Allen.
No, we're just.
Better.
Beauty.
Allen Road.
I mean, I got all the side.
Which makes sense now.
What you can see.
For what I can see, I got, I made some.
Oh, it'll fit the same as the neighborhood.
Yeah, and then there's
There you go.
we're all gonna have sidewalks.
No, where's?
Yeah.
No, where's?
Whoops. They were not.
But there. This is.
I can't recall.
And kind of like.
You guys are just messing with me is what it is, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I was not there with a bulldozer. I wonder what he got for the corner.
Yeah, from their house, yeah.
So you're pushing your stuff up.
You know what? The crazy thing is I'm exhausted today. I don't know what this is.
What? You were the queen earlier.
Nothing, yeah, and it's still kind of.
Oh.
Plant.
Reacted.
You don't make them.
As the water being.
My kids will.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So John, do you got some ideas for me for next week?
Wanted to see.
I got 7 hours. You got 7 hours in and out. So is it, let me think. And I think I get in like maybe around 5 or 6. So, you know, so I think we leave again, I get 1 in the morning.
Which one?
Don't. It's the actual Ohio.
Right. I appreciate that.
I'll think what's near there. Okay.
Got plenty of time to get out and then come back through.
It's centrally located where I can just go and go. Okay. At least if nothing else, we have a bite to eat or.
Oh, yeah, it's
Down there. Do I have to get a visa or anything? Like a.
Kind of like that.
traveling on visa.
No, I don't, I mean, I think they give you, I mean, it's not like when you get a buy or get ahead of time. but-
Just, no, you gotta have a passport to come back, but you can leave anytime you want to.
Well, yeah.
You can't come back, but
Just don't tell them what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't get into the other place without a passport.
Yeah.
you can, you just can't get back here.
Don't tell them what you do. You'll be all
Go
right.
out in Mexico all you want to, you can't get back. Can't get back.
Something, because 7 hours is a long.
Put it up there.
Yeah, I'll go.
Edie got it? Edie got it good?
Without crawling to the hole. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I plug in, remember?
Wow.
Under there.
It's a.
Yeah, okay.
Start it all over. So
One's an internet check.
You know, 2 is hard. Trying to remember 9. I don't remember 9 being easy. I have one right here.
Okay, well, Samantha, you all ready?
All right.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening with the City of Centerton Planning Commission meeting, May 16th, 2023, with a roll call.
Jeff Safar,
I'm here.
Joey Engel, Devin Murphy, Craig Langford, Jerry Harris, John Sessom,
Here.
Ben Lewis, Tony Davis, Brandon Swoboda.
Before we get started, I just wanted to share a few facts I saw in the paper this morning for Northwest Arkansas, in case y'all didn't see them. We did make the top 10 places to live or whatever, and the Metro population showed 526,000, medium home price 203. Median monthly rent 868, average age 34, average annual salary 50. At the time, unemployment was 4.7. The average commute 20.6, probably one I would dispute, but that's what they said. So just wanted to share a few facts that were part of that as they considered places to live in the United States. So
Centerton specific.
that's Northwest Arkansas. So the two counties. All right, now, first thing on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from 5/2 of 23.
John, I motion to approve the minutes of 5/2/23.
Joey, a second.
Motion is second. Is anyone opposed? All right, next on the agenda is the ratification of the admin approvals. You can see there's one for a used furniture, there's an office, at-home bakery, online sales, some additional parking, and a track splits. Were there any questions or comments from any of the commissioners or staff on any of the admin approvals?
We went. Oh, I want to go over the report for the minor site improvement for the Acer Games additional parking.
All right, that is, go ahead.
So, yes. So we're looking at a proposal for the owner of Acer Game, Ramesh, to build 26 temporary parking spaces on his neighbor Gonzalo Acevedo's property. The services establishment. So they provided a pedestrian crossing. It's across the street, so they're gonna put a pedestrian crossing in it. As well as making the parking lot out of gravel. We went back and forth on, well. Wanted them to emphasize the direction of the drainage, and so looks like it's in good shape, so we recommend it for approval.
And it is 26 temporary parking spaces. They did sign a lease agreement in April and it's proposed to last till 2026.
How long did you give them for the gravel?
I don't think they put a specific limit on it.
Historically, we've kind of been in that 9 months to a year timeframe whenever buildings and others ask to put in a temporary gravel or, less than a hard surface. So is there an opportunity to have that discussion with them?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're here tonight, so we'd have to discuss that condition with them. So after a year, you'd want them to maintenance it or only be up to a year?
We would look for a hard surface at a year. And historically, that's what we've done. I know there's been a couple churches and one or two other smaller businesses where they've done that. And I think historically after that year, then we would be looking for a hard surface type of situation.
So you want me to make a contingent approval letter? Or-
I would like to see that. I would like to see that, yes. I mean, if they want to have a discussion, they're welcome to come to the next meeting and we can have a discussion, but I think there's been enough history that we've done that. I think that at least that's. I'd agree. I agree.
The main condition is maintenance of the gravel with.
He's saying after 1 year, they would want to see a hard surface for the parking lot.
So that spot is low lying and floods decently. What are they doing to mitigate stormwater?
I don't know exactly what they're doing, but Alan did look at the drainage and with whatever they're doing to mitigate it, he did approve it.
And how does that change once it's paved?
Don't change it.
Good.
Yeah, disperse. Yeah, so I would just make that all part of it, that would need to be approved, once they reach their year. Any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the ratification of the admin approvals.
I'll motion to approve the ratification of admin approvals.
Jonathan.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, under old business, it looks like there's some discussion for the potential rezone 2302 at Victoria Peak, which is the Main Street mixed use, which also had a planned unit development on top of it.
Okay, they are. Cool. I'll let them go first.
Yeah, so we do need a motion to bring it to the table. Thank you.
John, I motion to bring back rezone 2302 from table.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Sure.
Jack Galenko from CEI Engineering to represent the applicant. So the last meeting that we had, the planning commission had suggested doing higher commercial frontage along Main Street. There is another drawing, I don't know if it's in the PDF deck or not, that has the zoning diagram. But we've responded to those comments and come back with a revised zoning proposal that would include that 200-foot depth commercial lot all the way across Main Street.
Working on.
I don't think I included just the one you guys sent. We made another map.
We can look at the other drawing and I'll point it out. And the reason being in the land use plan, it showed the contiguous commercial frontage along Main Street. So we were showing that now for the full commercial frontage. So the revised plan reflects, as is shown on the land use plan here, with C3 commercial along the Main Street frontage. And then behind that would be the RTH MF12, the townhome zoning. And we're not looking, tonight we're just talking for information and to get your feedback. So I want to make that clear, and then we'll resend the public notices and come back. We're targeting June 6th at this point. So right now, we'd just like to get your feedback on the revised zoning, and then we can walk you through the site plan revisions too. So I don't know if we want to go through the plan revisions now too, or we just stick with the zoning.
We'll have to do the plans separately since they're separate.
Okay.
So I guess is your question, do we like having the zoning across the front,
Yes,
all the way across as commercial?
yes.
And I think the answer is yes. That's definitely our intention.
Okay.
Unless somebody disagrees.
I have a question about the reality of putting that commercial all the way across when there's an existing residential home in an A1 zone being advertised as a duplex.
We did get additional information about that. They did split that duplex, and Lorraine told them that currently you can't have residential, that kind of residential in agriculture. So if they're wanting to keep that right now, they'll have to do a variance to be allowed to do that use for now. And then I think they believe, we'll go over it with the PUD, but when they do the PUD, they're wanting to tear that building down to do commercial on the bottom, residential on the top.
Yeah, it's definitely in non-compliance, not only.
And then even rezoning it C3 would bring a non-conforming entity into it.
Yes, they'll need a variance either way.
Well, and it's not structurally ready to be a duplex either.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody, I asked, but agrees with having the commercial across the front?
And last time you guys did ask for us to do some math about how many units could feasibly fit on this lot. So I sat Alan down and made him work the math out with me. It was great. I don't
The reason he's not here tonight?
scared him off, but we took into account the roads, the electrical easement, setbacks, and we came to about 7 units per acre, and probably a little less than that.
7 units per acre.
That's the feasible.
And I'd say that's like the highest feasible. I don't see it going any higher than that. It's probably a little less than that when you take into account street setbacks, like side street setbacks and things like that.
Did that include the required open space too?
That is for if it was just zoned RTH MF12, that doesn't take into consideration any of the PUD requirements. That would add the additional 25% green space, so it even goes lower than that.
So with no open space, it's at 7.
Yeah, without any of the PUD setbacks, that's just, it got zoned RTH MF12. They didn't do a PUD, they can just put something on that lot. 7 units.
And that's 42 units.
And that's in like the perfect world, all of it, which is, it's still, it's not the most accurate number because of the way that easement runs through the property. That's just straight, it's not.
With that being, commercial all the way across, will there need to be an easement or something back to the back part of the?
I don't think there'll need to be an easement, but the overlying part of the PUD, when it's like this, they should include, which I think has been a couple of our challenges, they should include how they're going to work that in. So I don't think there'll need to be an easement, but need to be a part of the bigger picture as well.
We are planning that, so on the south property line, we're showing a 50-foot right of way to provide frontage to the back lot. And we'd like to move forward with a lot split on that too, contingent on the rezone to split the commercial on the current parent tract, which is the 9.8 acres.
I think we just need to understand how it fits into the PUD documents and ownership and some other things. Just want to make sure that all that's part of it, or that it's clear and that it can be done. So if that's certainly the intent, then we need to make sure that that overlying is going to be okay.
And we can cover that in more section.
We just need to table.
Well, I think the first one is really about just the rezone in general, and the fact the commercial along the front, that's really the discussion. I think that we need to, but there's good questions, right? I mean, the easements and some other stuff are definitely good things we need to think about, so.
Well, you're still sticking with the RTH in the rear?
Yes.
Anything, I think that's it on this, isn't it?
That's really all for, yeah, they changed it to be conforming with the land use plan with the commercial all the way across the frontage.
Don't have to table again since it's just discussion, right? I mean, we can just. I think you're good. All right, so now I'd like to entertain a motion to bring the PUD back to the table for discussion.
John, a motion to turn PUD 2301 table for discussion only.
Second. Motion and second, is anyone opposed? So there's some information that was received. It was in your packet in regards to, I know there were some questions about whether it's open space, green space, common use space, whatever we want to call it. And how it all kind of fits in. A lot of particulars around the electrical lines that are there, which does, of course, traverse the property at 100 feet. So if you want to go to those real quick, let's just cover off what Carroll Electric said, if you can, or Diane, or whoever.
I don't have the computer, it's on me.
No, do what?
He wants to see the responses from Carol.
Okay, sorry, my brain went left for a minute there.
The questions were really regarding the open space, what would be allowable within the easement. So some clarification there. No trees whatsoever, even if they're below a certain height limit. Chain link fencing would be allowed, the dog park or some other park fencing. We looked at considering pickleball courts, and they advised against that being in the easement. They're worried about any fencing above a 4-foot chain link height. And then
Need more than that for pickleball?
what's that?
You need more than 4 foot.
That's fine. That's cool.
Okay, I'll just ask, and I haven't played pickleball.
We're like 4 feet.
It includes the ball court in a different part.
Okay.
And then the last question, yeah, we were just asking for more clarification on the easements. some talking points there. So as long as they have access with gates to any fencing, they would allow it below a 4-foot height.
Anything else specific to the PUD then?
Yes, I'd like to look at the pipeline revisions.
Go back to the site plan.
So we met with staff last Monday, all through some of the changes that we discussed at the last planning commission and then some other staff concerns. So the key things you'll notice here,
But the computer catch.
thinking. So in the red area, you'll see that C3 commercial frontage along the entirety of the front. On the south end, you'll see the access dedicated right of way to access the townhomes in the rear. We are showing that 45-foot of right of way dedication, which is hatched in the light red along Main Street. And then the talking points that we had were getting a better breakdown of the open space. So how much of the open space happens outside of the easement, and more detail on what those open space amenities are. So the changes that you'll see marked up here, we moved the detention pond lot and made that retention. So it can count towards our open space. It's also bigger than what we had shown it before. And with this location, it has access from 3 sides for fishing, trail access around the retention pond. We moved the dog park to be in the smaller piece that you see over on the right-hand side of the screen. Then the larger, more contiguous tract, that 3/4 acre piece, we're showing a walking trail that's about 1/8 of a mile underneath that easement, since Carroll doesn't want any structures in there. And to the north of that, you'll see 2 pickleball courts with a little seating plot. So that's the key addition to that. The unit count has come down by enlarging the retention pond and reworking the street alignment. So city staff also had some concerns about the prior layout. Preferable to have the frontage of the townhomes on a public street rather than an access easement on the alley. So we flipped those around to where they all face a public street. So that would be a 50-foot right of way with public street dedication. We also changed the stub street to the north, which was a comment that was discussed at the planning commission last time. So you'll see that addition there. And staff also mentioned showing the corner bulb outs to protect the parking. So you'll see that in the plan as well. So those changes bring our unit count down to 35. And we had talked about that maximum allowable density that would be achievable here would be 7 units an acre, and this actually brings us down to
Like 6.9.
5.566.
Yes. It's so about 5.6 units an acre is what this layout shows. And then as far as the open space, we're meeting that 25% minimum requirement for the total site area, and that site area is for the residential only. So the commercial lot, we're hoping to split it, and that would come in as part of a separate project later. So this PUD would only encompass the townhome lot now. And that shows the 25% open space since it's strictly residential use now. And as far as the amount of that open space that happens within the easement, that number about 44%. The remaining 56% is outside of the
So what would look different if this weren't a PUD?
They wouldn't have to provide all of the green space. And
So there'd be like 2 more units where the pickleball court is?
their setbacks would be larger because they're asking for a reduced.
Right, so that benefits them. Yeah.
So minus the setbacks, how many would they be able to put in here? Did you get that math?
That's what she calculated, right?
Yeah,
Oh, the 7?
the 7 is if this was not a PUD, then.
That included you acted like the easement wasn't there?
No, the easement
Okay.
was there. The easement.
Thank you.
They're setbacks.
I don't know where you would put another unit.
I don't either.
Yeah, the math that came out to 7 was if this was the perfect lot, the widths
Right.
fit perfectly. So it's based on the angle of the easement, it's probably even less than 7.
I'm guessing it's 5.566.
The original one was 6 or something, so.
Something close to that.
Any other feedback from any of the commissioners?
What was the original number of townhomes proposed first on?
The prior unit count, I believe was
Like what? I didn't hear you.
42.
40 something.
Was the pond always in this location?
It wasn't that southeast corner. So now with this location, you get access on 3 sides. of the pond.
They've got walking trails and benches around their pond.
Then in the dog park over to the east, we're showing some more seating in there as well as some play features that would go in the dog park.
Then each utility easement is included in the green space or in the open space calculation.
And of the open space is in the easement.
Are you, then that's that whole.
Percent? Total?
That's from.
Ted, how does that math work? So you have open space percentage of TH zoning at 8.31.
So 25% is our minimum area to provide for open space, so we're coming in at 28% of that 6.3 acres. Our TH zoning area.
Gotcha. And 43.94% of that is within the easement.
There's 28% green space and 44% of that is in this.
And again, I do want to clarify that the streets would be publicly dedicated. We're showing the 50-foot local street cross section.
Which area is in?
Probably 2.5 acres, I would say. No, it's a little bit less than that.
That's
So. Two.
We can give acreage for it.
Well, they did. Open space in lot 1 is 0.8 acres. 43% of that is within the green or within the easement. So whatever that math is, and then the retention pond, is that counting towards your green space, Chad?
It's
And that's 0.65.
almost an acre.
Almost 1 area. Almost 1.
Yeah, almost 1 acre. 0.997. That's not about right.
Yeah. I think so.
So.
So,
It's lot two.
two units per acre, two.
R2, like regular resident, 3 to 6. Or 5.
Figuring out how much.
These are different structures, same amount of.
Trying to get their whole breakdown, of what is in the easement, what's out of it.
Maybe that's good feedback for next time.
The biggest thing.
Better breakdown of the green space. They're asking how much of lot 1 is in the easement versus how much is out of it. Same thing with lot 2. You know, we've got a percentage, they want to know the acreage.
In terms of the rest of the layout, is this a more palatable solution?
It's come a long way personally.
Yeah.
Looks good.
I think there was concern about the conformity with the surrounding neighborhoods that I don't think's been addressed.
So the comprehensive plan, land use requested 3 to 7 units an acre, low medium density. And we're coming in at 5.6.
Right. The comprehensive plan also suggests the aesthetic be.
And it also calls for strategic pockets of density along Main Street. So I think the architectural character, we can address that in terms of the building materials.
You want to present that with your UD?
It's in the narrative. We have some representative in.
Language, no elevations or anything?
We've not.
I think that could be an issue, and I think the fact that it's really nothing more than a rezone. In my opinion, you could, use a couple more units in the pickleball court area. And yeah, there's some trails in the easement, but really it's kind of just like a rezone. I understand there's some amenities and whatnot, but we're squeezing every last bit out of that one.
We're requesting a reduced lot. So,
I see what you're saying. I mean, the density is from what was on the.
In the PUD.
In the PUD is same as the master plan, comp plan.
Realistically on this
Just the
property.
the architectural structure of surrounding neighborhoods. With the difference. There's been you usually have buffers that go from R1 or 2 or 3, buffers in between. This would be an odd situation where there's no buffer. It goes from R2 to family. Without something,
we do have the commercial frontage there.
transition along Main Street, but in the eastern part and northern part. The residential R2, I believe, right?
What's that?
Let's give us some feedback on
Residential
yeah.
what
R2.
we heard last time.
Anything else we do want to point out about this that we should discuss is that this layout only presents one access into this development.
Yeah.
And they said that the second one will be determined with the commercial development.
We're gonna connect to the public road behind it.
But if you guys are splitting that off, you have no impact on the commercial development then, right?
We're suggesting that connection be built as part of the commercial lot.
We would
So-
put that as part of this requirement.
Yeah, otherwise if it ever gets commercialized, we're never gonna get that.
So we had some discussion there last time about we're so constrained on that commercial piece, wanting to preserve as much developable area as we can, given the electric easement. So if we align that street, where it is now on Haas, which was preferable street alignment, we're losing more buildable area there on the commercial lot. So we can make that we can make that as a recommendation for the commercial piece. For them to align their driveway there, but we want to provide as much flexibility as we can for the development of that commercial lot. So making the suggestion to align at Haas, whether it's a driveway or it's a public street. But we don't have development plans for the commercial piece at this time. So we'd like to maintain flexibility there.
And originally the commercial piece was with the PUD, right? Goes back to my point, like this is more just could be handled on a rezone.
But then we still have the smaller lot area.
Exactly, like there's a lot of benefits going to densify this land. There's a lot of benefits going one way, was my point. Was the lot, what was the request here? It was 2,000 square feet, is that right?
2,550.
From 3,000. 30-foot lot width would be required normally, and they're requesting 25.5. And then the side internal setback would be 25 in a straight run. And they're seeking to reduce that to 10. And it says 0 otherwise, but I'm not sure what that means.
So the
Next to
building development. And we end up with a 20-foot setback between the buildings.
Yeah, I think there's still a little bit more to work out. I still don't feel comfortable. There's truly gonna be a track split. And all of a sudden, we're separating that commercial from the residential. Because it loses the continuity, which is really the design behind a PUD whenever it comes in. And if we go split that, understand today you don't have any plans for this. You're gonna end up with a piece of property up here that is gonna be an eyesore to the city potentially, and then some residents behind it. And that's not really the idea behind a PUD whenever somebody brings it into us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I understand.
Okay, now what I understand, they're splitting off. The commercial will not be part of this PUD.
Jeff just, that's what Jeff just said.
Usually it
That-
is.
That disrupts the the continuity of it is what it disrupts. If it gets split off, right? I mean, ideally, the PUD should encompass everything so that we can understand.
Well, you can have just a residential PUD.
Sure.
And
There were two parcels. Or split.
yes, I mean, part of this would have to be split. And that's,
Technically, you're looking at a bunch of different.
Well,
Well,
I meant zoning, yeah.
if you want it to be one parcel and integrate, then that's a whole nother thing.
That's what we looked at the first time. And that's what Jeff was saying.
Yeah, what I'm saying is we lose that integration. If we go split these off. I think we lose.
Really, I'm not sure we had it the first time because there were no buildings proposed on the.
Correct.
Just drive through.
It's just been separated ever, getting separated.
Yeah.
And I think the design is certainly more palatable. I understand the constraints with the 100-foot, of course, that was there whenever it was purchased. One in and one out doesn't excite me. I would understand the Haas Street. And I mean, I do like the stuff out to the north.
I'm assuming for future, this is a question of staff, but there's one more residential piece to the south. What was the thought on that? Just to tee that? Right away.
So that could go either way. It could go on the backside or continue down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that corner disrupts it in the future. I think you could go.
I think you'd want it connected so you don't have multiple more drives out onto.
Thinking, I was trying to find it. Are you thinking about doing a 6-foot fence on the north side? Is that what you're?
Yes, so the north. And then that southbound show 6-foot fencing. And then we're showing trees at 50 feet on center.
What's the east side showing?
It's a 6-foot fence, 6-foot fence as well.
Yes. We're showing that as a private.
Joey, did the developer neighborhood didn't put anything there already, did he? For some of those?
2 or 3 of them that aren't complete.
That's
On the
what,
feedback from the open discussion.
They have small, kind of see-through, wrought iron stuff.
oh, okay.
Does that answer your questions? I mean, I still worry about the splitting, but I think we can address that at the next meeting. I definitely think it's a little more palatable.
You guys be more open to having it split if they had a better buffer along where that commercial is proposed? Or that, or at least there's a buffer from public eye. They don't build there, kind of how we did with the storage on Greenhouse Road.
I mean, they're showing a decent buffer. It doesn't go all the way north, but
They added a better buffer along where they can.
They've gotta make connections. Yeah.
right. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, thinking about the design of the PUD would be to be in the integration part of it. We have no idea, people are gonna cross the road and potentially get over to a proposed commercial area. And so there's no interaction between the two if we go split it. And so you're gonna put a lot of residential without any way of knowing how they may interact with the upfront as we consider one. First, the original design around a PUD on a parcel of land. And today, we're now potential proposal is that we separate that and with no idea for the front. We're gonna potentially put residential in the back with no way of interacting with that front, which kind of defeats the purpose of a PUD. So ideally, what we're doing here, or what the request will end up being, is a PUD for residential only, not have anything to do with the commercial in the front, the way that I look at it.
PUDs aren't necessarily just integration between commercial and it's different design. Residential and all. No. So when they had the issue of the commercial along the front and redoing that part, then they decided, okay, we'll just do the PUD on the back part. And then that makes that 25% for the residential open space requirement.
Now it's more just like a straight zoning, but with more benefit going to the.
When we get,
for densification of this property. Was my point when I said all that.
It's a zoning, that's why on the PUD, and that's what some of the things that we need to go through. Along, in order for them to have a higher density or to not meet the zoning requirements. There are certain requirements that they have to do with the PUD. To allow them, it's like a give and take, like you're saying, you're expecting.
Right.
I think what you're seeing, what you are seeing is. There's a lot of, they're getting better density, but they're really not giving. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe 25%.
But if it was a straight zone, you'd be giving 22% because of the little. Actually, you might give, I don't know, who knows? But it wouldn't be, you wouldn't pick up. You would lose units.
in this case, the benefit to them is also, in this case, it works out with the utility.
Right. That's 40-something% of their deal. Right, yeah. And that's gonna be there regardless if it's a PUD or not.
They could also do a much smaller pension pond, just do a detention pond without it being retention. And it'd be smaller, just be absolutely what is required and get another.
Yeah, but they'd also lose the 25-foot setback where they pick that requirement up instead of 10. And the minimum lot size would have to be 3,000. And I'm not a proponent of straight zone either. I'm just comparing apples to apples here.
As far as the interaction with the commercial piece, depending on how that commercial lot develops, it's a public street, so it would have double-sided street frontage, both on Main Street and the internal.
Didn't we discuss it connecting to, well, basically aligning with Haas?
That's where we're showing either the driveway or the right of way. Or the commercial piece would be aligned with Haas, so it's dashed in.
Everything north of Haas, you couldn't build anyway, it's on the easement, so.
Yeah.
On the commercial side, so really you're only looking at 3/4 of that commercial space.
Is that shown as right away right now, Chad?
What I'm seeing, the two lines right there, is that dedicated right away to?
It's not. No,
Oh, okay.
the only right of way dedication in this would be on the south side for the access.
Green space, I know it's easement, but if they did this as a straight rezone, they wouldn't have to be putting any kind of amenities around. that each. I know we're not
I
the
understand.
biggest fan of having those amenities in the easement, but at least we're getting something.
I do have a question. I see green space around each lot. Is that being included in the green space calculation? It's not. Okay. All right.
No, that's just the yard.
It's just showing. Okay.
Any additional feedback from any of the commissioners? I know there'll be a rich discussion when this comes before us, I'm sure.
I got a question with the commercial space. If they had any idea what was going on, I'm like you, I need to see another
Yeah.
entrance to it. They could incorporate, even if they came up with an idea, what was going in the commercial space to tie that in with the PUD, because it's all one PUD, right?
But if they split it, then it won't be one, it'll be one and then commercial upfront.
Yeah, I need to see how that works.
Yeah, I thought that's what those two lines were. It was basically right away connecting that. All the way over.
Yeah, it's the same line. That's what I thought too.
That's what I thought. That's why I was asking. It looks like, are you dedicating that as like a driveway to connect to, then it would almost connect the commercial space to the neighborhood, to Main Street. This would be more fluid.
That's my comment.
Now, the driveway could go in the easement.
I don't know why I'm doing these, but
The driveway can.
I mean, that's 10 feet below sea level.
Any other questions, Chad?
Would there be support for this plan?
I don't know that we can answer that tonight. I mean, that's not what we're here for. We gave you our feedback, heard our comments. I think we'll have more discussion from the residents whenever we do the next public hearing. We gave you the pluses, we gave you our thoughts around the green space and then, the potential splitting. I think that's about all we can do tonight. I think we can give you a thumbs up or thumbs down necessarily, just some of our thoughts.
All right, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda this evening under new business is a public hearing. And this is for rezone 2304, rezone from A1 to C3. This is at 1092 Main Street. It's just over 1 acre. And the applicant here to give us, you just want to give us a quick review what you want to do?
I'm Cindy Bloomstein. I live at 1092 Main Street. And we are going to sell the property and rezoning it commercial or C3 would be consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. I'm requesting the rezone.
Thank you. And do you want to give us a staff overview?
Yes, this property is located at the southeast corner of Townview and Main Street. There is currently an existing home on the parcel that will remain until the future development does occur. Property owner, as Cindy stated, plans to sell the property after rezone. There are no current plans to develop it currently, and the public notice requirements were met. Property is adjacent to, on the northwest corner, there is the PUD for Para Rose, which is also zone C3, and directly across from this property is the new Come and Go that is currently has the large scale development plan going on right now. Of course, y'all just approved the PUD not too long ago. And of course, the property that we were just discussing is not directly south of this one, but two more properties south. The comprehensive plan does have this entire eastern side of Main Street as commercial, so it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the surrounding uses, like I said, are the commercial. Of course, there to the north is R2, which is of course Tuscany, and to the east, there is a little bit of space between this property and the subdivision there to the east, so there will still be a remaining piece of R2 that will be behind this property still. But it does align with the comprehensive plan.
You, Diane? Any questions from any of the commissioners before we open it up to the public?
Is this already sold or is the sale contingent upon rezone?
It was contingent, but they dropped the contingency.
Okay, that helps you.
At this point, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This Tony, I'll make a motion to open up the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second to open the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? We are now open to the public. If there's anyone that wishes to speak, have any questions or comments, we ask that you come to the podium and we ask that you state your name and address and any questions or comments that you might have.
Hi, my name is Stephen Parker. I live at 151 Verona Way. I was actually here for the previous discussion, but looking at where this is wanting to be made commercial, understanding it's consistent with the proposed plans. My concern is that the house south of this is now going to be sandwiched in between two commercial pieces of property. That's essentially just forcing homeowners out and or can also hurt their resale value of their house today. Also, Townview is already very congested as it is, so we don't know the intentions of what this property will be used for. It's just a rezone. We don't know what's going in. We don't know what kind of traffic that's gonna drive. Especially with the neighborhood north of Townview they're finishing that one out now too. So until I think the plans of the previous discussion, I think are finalized and finished, and we understand what that looks like. I don't know that it's within the best interest to mark this as commercial, in my opinion. And well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak or have any questions or comments? And third and final call? Then I would entertain a motion to close.
Make a motion to close up, please.
Joey, I'll second.
Motion.
You got it.
Second, is anyone opposed? Jerry was on and I was stuck behind. Any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners in regards to this rezone?
Now, just to clarify, we have C3 to the west, we have C3 to the northwest. And it all fits in our master land use plan, correct?
It does. Including, and again, thinking about the future, right? I mean, we understand there are agriculture, I believe, those that there's a 3.5 or 2.5 acre, 3 acre lot. Then there's the property we just talked about, and then there's the one that's south, which is also all lined up.
Which could be potentially, yeah.
But this one particularly of interest because it hits that intersection.
Yeah.
For street improvements and such.
Let's go through what we need to consider. The first one is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan, if not why. And the rezone is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. Does anybody disagree with that? Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? Again, I think back to your comment, Tony, in regards to the west, northwest, and potentially, to the south. I believe that it is compatible. Does anybody disagree with that or any discussion? Would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and the surrounding area? I think the neighborhood commercial designation that's being requested, is designed to fit within neighborhoods. And so I think that what is allowable in those zones would be, compatible. Anybody have any questions or comments in regards to that? Would the rezoning provide a benefit to this landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? I do not believe that this benefits the single landowner. I think we would do the same consideration for all the properties. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments?
That with the exception of the landowner between this one and the other one?
No, because I think if they came in, we would give the same consideration for that commercial upfront, similar to what we have done in the.
But I think I was only asking that because they haven't come in to request that at this point.
No, I don't think so. Not in this case. And then if the public is opposed, why? A couple comments from Stephen in regards to, we don't know the resale property necessarily, whether it's, no facts or figures necessarily on plus or minus for the folks around.
Well, I would say there's a landowner currently in this situation and they're with a home on the lot and they're asking to rezone it, so.
They are. The traffic, we don't know necessarily, in regards to what might be there, but there would potentially be some improvements. I think that's what Tony kind of mentioned, especially on that intersection. And the consistency, that area has been kind of designated as commercial for a pretty long time on a couple of our different land use plans. So that's, in regards to the information that was shared. Any additional questions or comments from staff or any of the commissioners? If there are not, then I would entertain a motion for the rezone A1 to A1 to C3 at 1092 Main Street.
John, I motion to approve rezone 2304 A1 to C3.
Tony, a second.
Motion and a second. Caleb, if you'll do a roll call for me, please.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Brandon Kubota,
Yes.
Gary Harris,
Yes.
Ben Lewis, John Sessoms,
Yes.
Tony Davis, Jeff Safarth.
Thank you, guys. Good luck. All right, next on the agenda this evening is also a public hearing. This is for rezone 2305 Harbor Manor. The rezone request is from A1 to R3 single family. This is at 11897 Holloway Road. It's 19.94 acres. Is the applicant here to give us an overview of what you're requesting?
It's Taylor Lindley with Crafton Tom. This is the rezone from A1 to R3,
zoning to the west and the east. It does fit within the future land use map. It is a little out of order if you recall the area that we're talking about right now. There's a preliminary plat that's already been looked at on the site. I apologize for that. We're trying to fix that. Here's the reason. Thank you.
I'll take responsibility for that.
Eric, would you like to walk us through the staff overview?
Yes, so the applicant wants to rezone from A1 to R3 SF, being high density residential. Similar land use or similar zonings are to the east and west with Annika Estates, Hilldale, with close proximity to the Grimsley Junior High School. So. The road Holloway Road is a 90 foot minor arterial per the Main Street plan. There is water along Holloway, sanitary sewer. Available through the thorough connection to Annika Estates. It is in the medium high density residential land use. And that remains consistent with the rezone. It is compatible with the surrounding uses, like I said, mostly R3 SF and agriculture throughout.
Bar Straits, there is also a proposed minor collector between this property and Annika Estates. Just to the west of this property.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we open up to the public? I agree sometimes. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing then.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second. Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? I'll just start by making a note that we did receive a letter from a Josh that is talking about the impact of the rezoning. Just asking to please leave this as countryside. Beautiful area, wildlife, and traffic were the main considerations for us to think about. And that's an email that came into the staff that was in your box. And we are open to the public now. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Have any questions or comments in regards to the rezone from A1 to R3 single family? Yes, you come up here and just give us your name and.
My name is Dr. Belker. I'm actually here for a different thing. I do live in the Tamron neighborhood. It's actually just up Pishatry a little bit from this. I'm not opposed necessarily to a rezone. My only concern is that with the junior high there, the traffic is really quite unbearable, but at least they have, you know, Main Street as like a secondary option. The problem is Main Street floods quite often. And so my concern would be that this area is getting built up quite a bit, and I expect that to happen in Centerton, but my concern would be unless we get that minor collateral roadway in place, when Main Street floods, which happens a lot, we're gonna end up with a lot of problems on Vaughn, which is where all those school kids are, and there's already been, you know, a couple accidents and some near misses already this year, so that's just something to consider. That was my thought on that.
And this is how you get the street improvements is when the developers come in for to develop. Part of the requirement would be, you know, that building that road and improving the existing road.
Yeah, well, had some comments about that on a later issue.
Sure.
That was my comment. Thank you so much.
Did you get her name?
What was your name?
Do you need clarification?
Bronte Welker.
Just for the record, they like to make sure. Thank you for doing that. Anyone else wish to speak? Have any questions or comments in regards to the rezone? And we'll do a third and final call. And then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
John, a motion to close the public hearing, rezone 2305.
Motion and second to close. Is anyone opposed? Any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we go through our considerations? All right, first thing is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan, if not why? And this one is consistent. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments? Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? And I do believe that it being surrounded by additional R3 single family, it is compatible. Does anybody disagree or have any comments? Would all the permitted uses in this new zone be compatible in this location, the surrounding areas? And again, I do believe that it would be compatible, being the single family residential. Anybody disagree with that or have any comments? Would the rezoning provide a benefit to this landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? And I do not believe that it provides a benefit to just this landowner, that we would not consider any others. Does anybody disagree with that or have any comments? And if the public is opposed, why? Not necessarily in opposition, just something for us to consider. We look at traffic every time that we have a rezone. Traffic is certainly something for us to consider. But again, I think Joey pointed out that through development, we do get additional roads and improvements in regards to trying to help traffic around the area. Any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners or staff? If not, then I would entertain a motion for rezone 2305 Harbor Manor. Rezone request is from A1 to R3 single family.
Joey, I'll make a motion to approve rezone 2305 Harbor Manor, A1 to R3 single family.
Motion and a second. If you'll do a roll call for me, please.
Tony Davis. John Sethams.
Yes.
Ben Lewis.
Yes.
Jerry Harris.
Yes.
Brian Swoboda.
Yes.
Joey Engel.
Yes.
Jeff Safarth.
Thank you for doing this and good luck. All right, next on the agenda is subdivision 2112 Diamond Estates Phase 5 final plat. It's at the northwest corner of Kulina Street and Wolverine Drive. It is zoned R2, 16.94 acres and 65 lots.
Here for this one as well. Hey, we're new Crackton Toll. Yes, final days of Diamond Estates subdivision, so. Closeout has been addressed with the city staff, final walkthrough has been held. The punch list has been addressed,
How's the zoning on this one?
We the zone first.
That just wasn't right. Was it? I mean, kind of deserved, but not right. All right, Kayla, this is you.
Yes. Okay, so it's 65 buildable lots. It's zoned R2. This project did have an approved variance that allowed them a 10-foot reduction in lot width, so 70 feet instead of 80. They were still required to meet the area requirement of 8,500 square foot per lot. The site inspection was done on April 24th, 2023. Most of the site was relatively complete. There were a few minor fixes that need to be made. Mostly there's some curves that needed to be caulked and whatnot. A reinspection was not required. They did send us confirmation that the work was done, and I believe somebody should be going out either this week or next week to just double check everything got done. The covenants were approved with phase 1. The bonds have been received and approved by staff. Streets is 100% for 2 years. Do you guys want me to read the amounts out to you?
No, it's okay.
Drainage is 100% for 2 years. Water and sewer is 50% for 1 year. The adjacent street agreement. So with this plat, they're dedicating 5 foot of additional right of way. So the breakdown for how we got all of the right of way, 30 feet of the right of way was dedicated in 2017 with phase 1. 5 foot of right of way was dedicated with phase 4. And then this additional 5 feet will get us the total amount we need. And then for all of Wolverine, the additional 30 feet was dedicated with a track split for Bentonville West High School. So we got 70 feet total. Since the master street plan calls for 80 feet of right of way, it's 10 foot short, and that just results in less green space than our typical street section. The comments on our final plat are relatively minor, and they're just about legibility and clarity. Same thing with the record plan, just very minor corrections. Pretty simple, straightforward, looks pretty good.
Just quick question, what was constructed on Wolverine on this?
I don't
Or
know.
was it all taken care of beforehand? Maybe not, since you dedicated right away.
Yeah, everything was widened per the master street plan or a version of the master street plan. I think this project has been ongoing through a couple different iterations of it. The only difference is that taper at the north end to tie in with what has been built in Maple Estates. Since we don't have control of the west side of Maple or of Wolverine at Maple Estates. That would be a part of the future development. They'll correct that taper at that time.
I'll also mention the high school will be doing their road improvements on the other side. And then I believe it's supposed to be 36 feet back. It's supposed to be 3 lanes.
We're gonna
And then that,
correct the taper at that time? Is the taper's on the west side of the road, right? That's, I think I see the line right there.
that taper will be connected when the subdivision to the north connects into it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? And if there's something you want to speak about, you'll have to holler at me because I don't always open it up to the public for other additional comments, so. If there are no additional questions or comments, then I would entertain a motion for Diamond Estates Phase 5 final plat.
Motion to approve subdivision 2112 Diamond Estates Phase 5 final plat.
Joey, a second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you, Taylor. All right, next on the agenda this evening is Development 2210 Bush Road Homes preliminary plans. This is at the northwest corner of Bush Road and Nottingham Lane. It is zoned R3 single family. It's 1.84 acres, 14 single family homes, 12 stone construction. And I think I saw Phil here. Do you want to give us an overview of what your?
You always get last, Phil. Did you upset some of the? plans?
Always. Always goes last.
We want to be mean.
We came through this, through a PUD with you guys on this. I think there's 14 homes. Common areas of the on the. Simple project, I think.
Anything crazy we need to think about? Is Eric going to tell us otherwise?
That's what I meant to say. So we're looking at a proposal of 14 single family lots with a maximum footprint of 920 square feet. This was based on an approved PUD back in 2021. And the unit count does meet the PUD. Most conditions are met, aside from a few. Which we'll get to here in a minute. So. Few comments remain on the front setback, that has been changed recently. In the south, 6 houses were shifted up about 2 feet. Yeah. And then the north interior lot, or the north interior street driveway was narrowed from 27 to 24 feet. So.
It's a private road?
Yes. So. The PUD requirements for a common open space is 25%. On their proposed PUD, they looked at 26.4%, and here on the development plans, it shows 28.6% of open space. There's one detention pond that covers about 0.05 acres, which is less than half of the total open space, which meets the PUD requirements. there is some slope on the lot, on a hill, slight hill. So there's some grading that is greater than 15%. It covers about 0.12 acres, which is it's 23.5% of the open space. For the, one of the PUD conditions is the preservation requirement. And there are 2 dedications towards open space easements, on the east and west side and southern property. And so, per the special PUD requirements, one included a plat to ensure clean property records. There's been some history of a lot combination without the approval of the city. That shows on the parcel records that's all one lot. So I'm gonna have discussion about that. And then the setbacks call for 15 feet side, 15-foot rear, and then 25 in the front, and then the 25 was just met. So for open space, as we discussed, the open space requirements were met. The density, so for 14 units to be on 0.89 acres, that total, that equals to about 7.4 units per acre. That goes a little bit further than the standard for the low to medium density residential districts, which is about 3 to 7 units per acre on average. There is landscaping provided, there's a landscaping buffer on the perimeter on each side of each face of the property. On the trees about 25 feet apart, and then there's some shrubbery on the ends of the middle 4 parking spaces in the middle of the property. So for parking, we're looking at on the proposed plans about 44 parking spaces. Each dwelling has a 2-car driveway, which totals up to 28 spaces that will serve the residences. And then 16 extra spaces will be provided. However, with the recent changes of the site plan, we do recommend that some of those 4 parallel parking spaces up top be removed. And to compensate for that, adding 2 parking spaces on the east end of the north interior streets. So on the east side. Is it?
Or are they needed?
Or if they're not needed, but we, would be recommended for adequate parking. We don't have any details about trash pickup. We would like to see some more detail on that. More specifically, we recommend a dumpster site on the property. And so street trees, just mentioned, landscape open street. So yeah, the landscape buffer will be a part of the street tree requirements. Which meets the requirements. So we're also looking at residential compatibility standards, where they're trying to meet the municipal code, which looks so far so good. There was a traffic study. I mean, we're looking at doing a traffic study to, determine if an additional turn lane shall be required at entry, which I think was already done, wasn't it, Phil?
Yeah, well, I think what we just decided is that. There's just such little traffic there that I don't see any need for extra stacking for that, is what we talked about.
Okay.
Is that not right?
You've only got 14 units.
Yeah, I don't-
I wouldn't say that it would require any stacking, but that's just
I
a
didn't see any need for that.
layman's opinion.
We felt the same way.
And so on the PD requirements, for street connections, we only want one connection, and on the plans it shows a connection to Bush Road. Along with a 10-foot trail being required on Bush Road as well as Nottingham, which in Nottingham, there's already a 5-foot trail. So on the zoning, we're looking at R3 SF. The comprehensive plan, it's in the low medium density residential district, and as I said, 3.7 units per acre, 327 units per acre. 10-foot of right of way has been dedicated towards Bush Road. There's a blanket utility easement that exists over the parcel, allowing Carl Electric to maintain their electrical utilities. So the utility easements. Utility easements located on. It's open space behind the house. All these easements will be dedicated by a separate document. So the current plans show an electrical line being rerouted along the west property lane going north. So 2 open space easements have been provided that totals up to half an acre. We don't see any amenities provided on the open space. We would like to see more amenities instead of just yes.
It wasn't required on the PUD.
I say recommend. So the retention pond is proposed in the southeast corner of the parcel with significant grading around the property. Staff has remaining concerns about the feasibility of the proposed grading. Further, it's unclear what street demolition will be required for the proposed connection to an existing store box within Bush and Nottingham Road. We're showing 40 street trees shown along all sides of the property, spaced 25 feet apart, in addition to 10 shrubs. For spaces. And the plan shows 5 streetlights being proposed, 2 along Bush Road, and then 2 along Nottingham Road. And there's a streetlight on the corner of Bush and Nottingham. And then there is 1 streetlight in the middle of the property, along the right-hand side of the corner of the intersection, the 2 interior streets. We would like to see a photometric plan just to the PUD requirements. That's development requirements. Development requirements. So we have fire hydrants being the interior roads, including the access from Bush Road. We would like to see sprinklers be installed in each dwelling. I'm sorry, that's only recommend along that, so no.
Any initial comments from any of the commissioners?
Thank you.
Joey?
What sort of right of way dedication, street improvement? Is there any of that work going on here?
No, the street improvements are already at master street plan level. And then right of way, well, yeah, there is some additional right of way, I think on the south side that we're dedicating.
Yeah, just a few feet.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
Um,
Internal is all access easement utilities.
mentioned something about a 10-foot trail going north. I think yours might be short. I can't remember if we talked about that during the PUD or not. I thought Eric said something about that. Said 10-foot trail along both frontages. Along Nottingham.
Nottingham.
Nottingham already has a 5-foot trail
You not say a 10-foot was required along both?
along Bush Road.
Okay.
North side of it.
I misheard there. So my other question is, and maybe this is just a mistake, but you're showing the area inlet at that intersection. Whoever's running that, obviously that's not an area inlet, right?
Yeah, I think that's missing.
So. Okay. Gotcha. I was wanting to make sure of that and then the grades, it looks like you're calling out a 1926 on that, the center of that curve. And it should, it's like, is it a reverse crown?
Yeah, it sure is. Well, no, I'm sorry, we had it that way at one point, but we're doing a normal crown because we couldn't get the spread requirements in that.
So if you do a normal crown, how are you gonna get the water off of the gutter to go into the area? Or like, is it a graded inlet?
Curb inlets now, do you see on here, that we're talking about on the side?
I'm talking about the one right there in the intersection by the manhole.
Oh, I got you.
Is that existing?
It's an existing inlet, yeah. So we're tying into that with our pipe.
Okay, so you're not touching the road. That's all existing condition.
We've got to cut the road open, but yeah, we're just patching it back.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Like internal street.
Is there anything you can do? Like Eric said, was a PUD. Obviously, you heard the first item tonight. Is there anything you can do to help feather that grade out on that swale that's coming down from the west? Not on the grading plan, but
Sorry.
and make that more usable and maybe
Sure.
provide some sort of,
And that grade out, that's.
yeah.
Yeah, we're just trying to make sure runoff gets behind, that stays behind homes and gets in section and there at the bottom.
And you might look at how it's picking up from the edge of that street right there. It looks to be pushing at that house. Well, that furthest west house on the south side of your private street. That water looks to be pushing right at it, but your swell starts down here,
Yeah,
so.
take a look at that for sure.
I mean, even a beehive would be cool, and then that would be usable area for those guys.
Sure.
That's all I got for now.
You're gonna be counting trees now, aren't you?
Nope.
I do agree with the photometric. I think, you know, as we kind of treat this as a subdivision, if you will, I think there's some opportunity for, you know, also being conscious of the residents. We don't want a light obviously in their house, but you know, especially if you plan on parking or, you know, if there's gonna be some walking around in here, I think making sure that, you know, it's somehow lit up from a safety perspective, kind of like we would treat a subdivision. I'd be okay with losing 4 parking spots. I don't know if anybody else has. I mean, let's just leave that open in my opinion.
You left out one thing, and what we also want is the architectural designs on the homes.
I think we provided those elevations at the PUD level.
Okay, I don't know, this report says that they weren't provided, so,
Well, we probably didn't send them back in. I thought what we provided at the PUD level was.
no, that's fine.
And
That's fine. If they were accepted during the PUD, that's fine. They don't.
just
Where are you thinking the trash pad? Well, I don't miss.
So
Trying to figure out how.
let me loop in with what Jeff just said. Losing the 4, you're talking about the parallel spots?
Yeah.
What if those, and one, I don't even know if they're needed, but if they are needed, what if those were to stay and we carve out a section on that head-in parking going north
I like.
for a dumpster? And then, obviously it'll have to have an enclosure. And I think it's far enough away from the property line. I think you'll be okay. You have trees back there. It might be a good idea to have a little island on each side of it and do some shrubbery or something just to make it look better, but.
What about on the Easton and North Interior Street? Cause what you got is, you don't have any driveway right up against the end there. And that's probably like,
Against the right of way?
not against the right of way, but in that space.
I don't know.
Yeah, that right there.
I don't think you wanna put a dumpster against that close to the right of way.
Even if it had an enclosure.
I like the internal, the.
So we need 3 spaces for that dumpster, is that right?
Something like that, yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe less, yeah, probably. No, cause that's 16 feet. Are they 8? Or 9 feet wide?
Yeah, but I'll lose the medians on each. I'll have to make so I'll let probably 4 actually.
I was for if you're gonna do, like an island on each side.
Well, you don't have to, but
No, I mean, I think we can do it without the medians on the side, or we can do, 4-foot wide medians or something like that.
yeah, they don't have to be huge, but nobody wants to open their door into the concrete or wooden dumpster enclosure anyway.
I'll lose 3 there, or 2, there's probably 3 there, then I'm probably still gonna lose the other 3, or the other 4, is that right?
You wouldn't have to.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to. And Phil, if you put it on the edge, either the west or the east edge, you have that built in.
On one side,
Yeah,
there's a little extra space there too.
I would almost do it on the right side where the parking is proposed. That way it's not right next to the house on the.
A little buffer there.
We're not losing the
Right away buffer.
spaces, is that right? Even though-
I don't personally have a preference either way. It's private. I mean, they're gonna. Does that mean fire though?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask Paul what his thoughts are.
I don't know that I've even got to strike it, honestly. I mean, it's gonna be asphalt space available.
Seen those videos where the fire department just goes through the windows. I could see Paul doing that.
It just run over.
How wide's that street?
It's 20.
Maybe 20 feet.
So you can't park there anyway.
Okay.
That's why I was in support of doing away with the.
So let's just get rid of them.
Yeah.
Not saying that people don't park there, but let's just get rid of them. Being striped them. How's that?
You have a pretty,
To the fire department. There's a,
We need to bring a parking. That we're right at the level now. So I don't know how that works.
if you lose a couple for the trash, does that mean you're below the?
I'm already at it. Now I don't know if you were talking about this, Eric, or not, but on the very right side, right? Maybe you didn't mean dumpster, but you can almost park 2 people at the very end. It's head end parking stalls there.
Yeah.
I get 2 back.
2 on the other side. Well,
You got this driveway.
driveway.
Yeah.
Good there.
And
I
you
would
have-
say if you put those 2 over there, I mean, and I know it gets close to the curb, but you could almost put a mini where those 2 are at right now.
You have some extra room between the 2 homes up there where you have the head end.
I don't. Does it require a variance? Part of a PUD? He doesn't mean.
The PUD has variances.
Right.
It's just if there were certain requirements, that's what I was kind of confused about. The requirement of 44 spaces, and I think that came from. Usually covered to uncovered. But with the PUD, there should have been something that covered. And
40 spaces.
No, I don't think you need.
They need to cover to uncovered. There was an additional. Required, I think it was.
to each of these.
That's a little heavy.
That's a lot of homes for 14 mini homes, a lot of parking.
These aren't, I mean, these are like single family, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Like the ones that are up here.
probably 2 people.
Right.
We don't,
Very.
I think you'll be all
I
right.
think we do the dumpster and I think we have plenty of parking. And your driveway depth is pretty good too, so
Yeah.
I don't see anybody living there that would need to park elsewhere.
So the photometric, just kind of let's kind of see what that looks like. The dumpster. Grading. Always grading. Be happy with that.
So another condition we'd like to add, or. And we'll settle this once, once on the other, once the middle, I'd like to see a note about the parking only.
All parking?
What do you mean?
Sign or?
PUD had a requirement that all off-street parking be signed as residential only. In the PUD.
This would be their kind of parking would there be?
Well,
There's just some,
it's before my time, I can't tell.
I don't know about. Still your fault.
Get the messenger, I don't know.
So on the photometric plan, I guess my thought on your lighting would be to worry about lighting the public area, right?
Correct. I mean, my thought process is if people are gonna park at the end and walk up here because there's extra parking, then they should feel safe in being able to walk from the end to one of these residents. That's my thought process. I mean, think about a subdivision where you have the alternating lights that at least have some illumination.
We can just so close. I'm just afraid anything down one of the roads is gonna just really be right in the window of somebody. I mean, I can see lighting the parking lot area, those areas, but.
Now that you're gonna put a dumpster, it fits in, I don't know, you can play with it, but I think being able to have, some lighting throughout, just so it's I'll call it a safe space is what we would be looking for.
Yeah, maybe we can put it in the common area and let it bleed out. I just don't know where you put it.
We don't want to do it at houses. I mean, we've all lived in one of those houses, right, where you need a dark line, but
Yeah, I just know what the criteria would be. I mean, are you trying to see square inch of this illumination?
no, I think some safe walking, is kind of what we're thinking, at least what I'm
And
thinking.
obviously not any light pollution onto adjacent properties. And speaking of that, would it be trouble to, on that east-west road on either end, can we add just a few shrubs around the trees that you have there? One on the east side, so headlights aren't pointed directly out into the right of way. And then same on the west for the adjacent property owner. Okay.
Any other comments from any of the other commissioners?
I have a question, just
Yeah,
kind
sure.
of my own understanding and learning. In staff findings number 12, it says the fire hydrant will be placed at each end of the interior road and including the access to bush. And then why is the staff recommending sprinklers be installed in the building? Just for my own information, I'm just curious.
They're not? Oh, that wasn't your comment?
I mean, sure, I would love everything to be sprinkled, but. I mean,
Where'd that come from?
it's just recommended.
From.
I mean, there's adequate fire access, correct? Right.
Need a secondary access.
Sure, Derek.
Okay,
So you are sprinkling or you're not sprinkling?
No.
Okay.
You wouldn't need to.
Yeah.
Maybe save on your homeowner's insurance, but. You can just switch to Geico for that. You don't.
That's what I was gonna say. He's like, gotcha.
Lost control. All right. There's no additional, is this one you wanted to speak on? Absolutely. Phil, excuse us, please.
Bill, are you adding any sidewalks anywhere?
I think down south on Bush,
I didn't see.
Yeah, it's the
10 footer.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be sidewalk, not dirt trail? Okay, so just from here to. Nottingham is where you're going?
frontage of Bush, that's right.
Okay, perfect, that was one, okay.
And then from what we discussed, there is an existing sidewalk running north and south on the east side.
It's completely gated off. So this Nottingham, like this is all West Ridge, Nottingham goes through West Ridge, it's 100%, like there's maybe 10 feet to Booth Road isn't gated as part of the local West Ridge community. So actually, none of that sidewalk is gonna be accessible to anyone.
That's a public street, right?
No, they're private.
Oh, Nottingham is private?
West Ridge, they're private.
Gotcha. But Nottingham Road is a private?
That's great.
Because it's gated, it has.
That's what I was asking.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers one of my questions, yes. Well, one of my questions, but I had a couple other thoughts. Or well, we can just talk about it if you want. So one of my concerns was the sidewalk because, so I live in Tamaron, which is just like on the other side here. One of my concerns is that I am glad you're putting in this sidewalk, but it doesn't connect, and this is mostly Westridge's fault, is it doesn't connect to anywhere that the school bus picks up. And then on the other side of the road, there's no sidewalk at all. So unless the school moves like their stop down, like.
They're all gonna change this fall
Are
anyway.
they? Okay, good.
So
Yeah, that was one of my concerns is that like, if there's nothing, there's nowhere for the kids to get picked up.
haven't published it yet, exactly what it's gonna look like. But there will be, from what I've understood, central locations throughout neighborhoods that the kids will have to get to. And the bus will pick them up somewhere.
Internal to the neighborhood?
They haven't announced all that yet. Still,
Okay,
they ripped the Band-Aid, so they ripped the Band-Aid and said, we'll figure it out, and it will involve something like that. So
Get those kids off.
the way they get there today will be different, I think, this fall.
And in Phil's defense, he's improving, everything that he's responsible for along his frontage. If, I assumed you were talking about
preliminary plan. Thank you, son. It only showed the trail, so I wasn't sure if that was gonna be like
Sure.
for sidewalk. Thank you, you just put it in the bag. It's hard for a 3-year-old.
Oh, it's good.
Huh.
We like the entertainment sometimes.
Concerns is, you touched on the fact that this does go over the density, like even the max density really for this zoning area, which I understand, like I said, like Centerton's growing, that's gonna happen. But even for like getting that extra little bit of allowance, there really doesn't seem to be anything coming back, I guess, like to the community, like there's no like, there's not like a little park or anything like that. So I'm like, maybe a little give and take would be nice, especially if there's gonna have to be a dumpster. If there's must be like some sort of HOA situation then. Okay, thank you. Just keep going. Just keep doing it. So in that type of situation, I think, I'm sure you're not there yet in your final planning, but some amenities. Especially considered,
And that's one of the things I think Joey talked about right on behind the house with regrading that.
just the grading, and then staff had asked for some sort of amenity, right?
Something there, just, that's a lot of grass.
You're talking about on this side over
I'm
here.
talking about the hatched area on the left, the west side of that property.
Also at the this is the north end, you've got above the parking spaces there. How much space is that there? Keep going. That space there?
Yeah.
That green space there, is there not? Is it?
What was approved with the PUD?
How many units?
No, like, as far as amenity wise or anything like that.
We met all the normal PD requirements, which is the amount of green space.
There wasn't any amenities required on the beach.
This was in the early stages of PUDs.
Take a look at it if you will.
And then I know it's not required for them to have 2 access points based on how big it is. However, and you guys know, like, if the land use suggests, I can even read it, but I won't. Last time I came, we needed it, but we don't. You guys know, the access in and out, they suggest, as many, at least 2 if possible. Okay, you just keep going, brother. The land actually just to I think it's just to the west of this, they've actually tried to rezone, I think 3 times and have been shut down 3 times because actually the traffic flow has been considered too heavy and rezoning it for any more density is considered be too hazardous to the community. So even though I can see where you might think, oh, traffic here isn't too important, I would really actually push for a traffic study because we might actually need that extra. Thank you, son. Because then it actually is quite a small road. There's no shoulder. Kids are crossing it back and forth for school. I know that might change, but it's not going to stop kids from running back and forth to get to, where their friends live. So I really do think we are going to need that extra roadway. And like he said, there's no improvements planned. There's not not even minor arterial roadways planned. Like that is what it's going to be.
hyper congested, especially during school time. So.
And to touch on your traffic study, what they do is they they quantify the impact of this development on the existing traffic. I think what you would find is it 14 units? Right, is not even a drop in the bucket. And really, I think the only thing that they would recommend, even if this were bigger, would be some sort of turn lane stacking just for this development.
Yeah, the traffic study
Yeah.
surprises sometimes, like we just approved, I don't remember, was there 300 or 400 units on 102, and we had them do a traffic study and they didn't need anything extra. We were quite surprised. Because of the way that so we would have to go by what the traffic study says. And if it says no improvement, then we can't require them necessarily.
It wouldn't surprise you, and they might be like, yeah, actually. I mean, I know it seems like a drop in the bucket, but it's funny you should say that. The last time I was here, they used that same phrase, but that's 14 units is actually a 10% increase in population down this road. I mean, Tamarron is only like 145 or 200 house development area. So, I mean, if you increase my taxes by 10%, I would feel like that's more than a drop in a bucket, more than 10% extra cars on the street. But, you guys will obviously, what you're doing, and I trust that. It's just, let's not just be like, oh, it's fine, let's take, some serious consideration into the area.
And I think the other difference is the scale of the two different projects we were talking about here, the one there.
With the high density housing.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for staying tonight. He's been pretty good.
Are you in public comment?
Yes, sir. If you'll come up here so that you'll state your name and your address for us, please.
My name's George Weeks. I live at 12660 Bush Road. You're familiar with the property? Not
Your property?
Yeah. Okay, it's right. That's up on the west side. You denied a rezoning request on me just a few minutes ago. You didn't, Mr. Engel? Yeah, you didn't. But it didn't go, and then I took it to the council, which wasted $2,000. So that's where I've lived there for 12 years. I keep hearing, oh, the traffic is terrible. We have a terrible problem on Bush Road with traffic. I've lived there 12 years. I'm there during the day. No time we have a traffic problem. The traffic problem we have out there is Brimley Junior High. They didn't put enough turn lanes in out there. The turn lanes get full. The traffic backs all the way up to Bush Road where you can't get in and out of it sometimes because of Grimsley. Everywhere in town when they're running buses, you got a traffic problem everywhere. Of a morning, of an evening, you have more traffic. Bush Road is beat up. Those new developments are putting out on the other end about Tycoon. Most of those people will go out to Highway 102. They won't go up and go. From used to go up and go out Tycoon. There ain't any traffic problem out there any worse. There's a lot of places in town, a lot worse traffic problems than what we have out there. The question that begs of me that I don't want you to answer, but we put 5 duplexes, 5 units, 2.5 duplexes per acre on mine. Couldn't happen. Right next to me, we can put 6, 7, 8 units per acre. But I'm not against it. I'm having his, because 2 wrongs don't make a right. It never just, mine should not have been turned down. But it shouldn't be turned down either. He's done everything that, as far as I can tell, he's been working about 2 years trying to get this thing shoved through. Remember when he got it, remember when he bought the property and had it rezoned. And he's worked for a long time. I have absolutely no problems with you approving his project next to me. I wish in the future that you would look at your rules, your regulations, your codes and what have you, and pay a lot less attention to public comment. Me, I got 15 emails out of Tampa. You folks across the road that haven't been there over probably 5 years, most of them. When I moved in there 12 years ago, there was not one house one across the road. I got people across the road that's on a 1/4 acre lot. They're telling me I just need to have one house for 5 acres on my side of the street. We had 15 to 20 people protested, didn't want mine done. You have 18 to 20,000 people in Centerton. So that's 1/10 of the population of this town. Went up there and protested it. 99.9% of the people in this town don't have a problem with him or didn't have a problem with me. And you have a few people decide they're gonna get together and run a bunch of emails in on you and stop you from zoning, doing something, you know? If I was asking to do something that didn't fit in with the plan, you know, with your overall city plan, but it did. It calls for multiple housing out there. Anyway, I just want to say that, what I want to say, I don't have any problem. I wish you'd approve this man's deal and let him get on with his business.
George? If there's no additional questions or comments, then I would entertain a motion for the approval of the development 2210 Bush Road Homes at the northwest corner of Bush Road and Nottingham Lane.
It's John, motion to approve development 2210 preliminary plans. In alignment with the discussions we had with the garbage and lighting. I guess upon and sign off of that.
Yeah, second.
Motion is second. Is there anyone that's opposed? Thank you, Phil. Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Other business this evening, the PUD code amendments, open space discussion. In regards to code section 14.04.12. It's you, Lorraine. You already? Better hurry up. This is tree count.
Okay. Which, do you have, I don't know, we have a document.
You can use the. Sorry.
What document would you like me to use, madam?
I don't know there. Okay, I really haven't had time to work on the PUD. I looked at it a little bit. Right, just a couple hours today. We're not probably remember that one. There's lots of comments, but we do need your input on when writing something up so that it is what you want. If we go, one thing, as far as definitions, I think that we need definitions as far as open space. We use open space, we say green space. So I want like a definition on open space, also mixed use. We have definition for developable area. And that is exclusive of the areas dedicated to the drainage infrastructure and rights of way. And it's basically, we were kind of looking at the open space requirement would be based on the developable area and take out those right of way and so forth. I think that was the intention when they were requesting. So, and then you also have your total project area. As we go down through here with the conditions and what we've basically been working on are the conditions along with the open space requirement. my first thing with the density, it states that it shall be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and future land use plan. What we found is that the comprehensive plan is actually states higher than what our zoning allows. So
What's that? Like,
Can you give an example?
yeah, specifically, one says 10, one says 12?
like high density, in our zoning code, it says 7 to 11. Where our R3 single family is more like 7, 8. That you can really get out of that.
But we don't. Are you basing that on the lot requirements? Because we don't give a hard number, right?
No, I'm just looking at if you take. I'm looking at if you take even the full acreage less.
Yeah, and I understand where you're going. I think part of the problem we have is maybe we should just list the units per acre in the zoning requirement instead of having to try to calculate minus right away minus all this.
No, I agree with that, but that's what I'm saying also that in our PUD, it states based on our future land use plan. So if you're looking at that density and it says a medium to high density, you're looking at 5 to 11 units in a medium high.
Right.
Where if you look at our zoning code, our medium density typically yields around 4. You know, as far as an R2. So.
Maybe both
It's
need
just
to.
not compatible. So it's difficult to know. You know, are we wanting to use our land use plan? Or do we, I know our zoning code needs totally reworked. But what densities are you actually looking for?
Well, let me ask you this question. The land use plan is a guide, right? And then the land development code is actually adopted by city ordinance.
The zoning.
So-
Yes.
With that definition, the way I interpret it is the development code is the, I guess, guideline, right? The land use plan is
Land use plan is the guideline.
a guideline.
Code is law.
Code is the,
Code is the.
Code's the law.
So that's that's my point. That's what I'm getting to. So,
So-
either change the code.
I changed the law, you changed the land use
Be
plan.
adjusted. Because it does have. I've seen more and more that the high density of 11 units per acre, that's pretty high when you.
It's really high.
So my feeling is, I believe that the comprehensive plan may need to be adjusted
Right.
for those densities and where it more aligns with what is in our. And that way it would be more compatible.
Agreed.
with What is surrounding.
I also think we need to hard and fast list the density units per acre in the zoning code. Because we try to do these arbitrary calculations of by the way, and all this stuff taken out of it when most zoning codes list a hard number.
No.
So I think both need to be changed. You amend the language in the land use plan. And you amend the zoning code to give that hard and fast density.
Okay.
And then there's this whole calculation of doing math on up here and all the time, that it makes it way easier.
is that not what you wanted to hear?
It's just gonna take a lot of amendments on everything. But I mean, it's something that needs to be done. So. Just have to have the time, yeah.
They're working 4 years now that after that meeting, we're working on
Okay,
regional planning.
the other things that on the open space. Okay, it's all planned unit development shall provide and identify open space on the development plan. Open space shall be maintained as common usable land for the purpose of providing parks, recreational facilities, areas for pedestrian movement and circulation, such as trails, or conserving for visually pleasing elements of the environment. And that right there, that's what I'm having trouble with some of these PUDs that come in, because they want to do all the green space around the buildings or, you know, like this one underneath the power lines. Well, that's green space regardless, so.
Correct.
I
So,
always thought open space was open to everyone to use.
Separate open.
Open, yeah, it's not green space.
so in order
Common space.
to look at that or to consider that easements, I recommend that there be a percentage that's allowed and that they definitely would have to provide an amenity for it even to be considered.
So with that definition, back to the discussion we just had, and Phil left, but with that, I mean, based on that definition, why would he have not provided some sort of amenity in the green space areas based on that definition?
Because that would have
Be
been.
calculated as green space, not
That would
open.
have been above and beyond what the. You didn't specifically.
I'm 100%, I'm 100% in agreement.
I agree with you, but that's just not the
I mean, what
definition.
you just read is what our PUD says, right?
Mhm.
And if it says that, then he should have been required,
Yeah.
according to that, to provide an amenity. And there was no amenity provided in any of the green space.
Yes, what,
Grass is so big.
How are you defining amenity? What is the definition?
It's all on there. I mean, whatever she said.
Something that is used by community.
Which one were you to that we didn't?
The one we just talked
We
about.
just looked at, it had a lot of just grass.
Yeah, it did.
Not a lot of basic grass.
I thought that had already been approved.
The
That should have come up.
approved.
with nothing specific shown.
But could we have added that in our discussion today?
I think it's there. We just need to make him show it. Is what Jeff's point was.
Yeah.
Jeff said it should already be there because the PUD says, well, the code says it should be there. Whether
Right.
PUD didn't or not.
Well, here's what I will tell you. When we see stuff, we're gonna see stuff to, get it through as economically as possible.
Oh, yeah.
And when we approved the PUD, we wouldn't have
They're not gonna
said,
spend extra money willingly.
I mean, we wouldn't have said like we initially approved putting a PUD on top of it. We wouldn't have said it has to have X, Y, and Z. We would have expected it to meet what we've already put in there, unless we requested something that was above and beyond.
Well, it spells it out right there, right? Number 7. Providing parks, recreational facilities.
Yes, yeah, so
Remove it.
so how is, so what he presented is not
Correct.
to code. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, the visually pleasing is pretty open. It's a big green space visually pleasing.
It depends on the type of grass. Bermuda grass, no. Fescue, okay.
So maybe that part needed to come out.
That,
Yeah.
that is where.
Fine,
you're looking.
visually pleasing. I might like my dirt track.
All right, let the grass, wildflowers, and have a hummingbird. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
Around my dirt.
Is there a second PUD on the-
Specifically on, no.
Okay. So I think that maybe we need to add something, add a section in the PUD for amenities.
To define amenities? Is that what you're,
To require amenities.
I thought that's what we have.
Well, it is, but I.
Vaguely
Like in
stated
our-
amenities.
In our, like the Arboretum map, we may need to repeat it in our PUD for those that are, not of that zoning district. Because there's nothing that actually requires them specifically, although I would be like you, I take this and I look at the intent. And that's
That makes sense.
it's for something, so I would say that something would be needed, recreational facility, you know?
So for the R4 MF, we say like so many units, you have to have an additional amenity. Would we be looking at doing like, if you're asking for this much additional density increase, you would need this amenity? You could pick from a list or propose one.
Or even just a list of what would constitute an amenity, not just grass.
Right,
Gazebo.
but at what point do we
Walking trail.
require additional amenities? The same way we do R4 MF. Would be my.
I think the trigger point would be when they go above what's regular zoning. I mean, if we're allowing 5 lots and they're proposing 10 lots per acre, then there you go. Even if they did 6.
Is it just if it's above, or is it?
No, it has to, you have to have it regardless in PUD. Or like or like I was trying to say tonight. They're just trying to get reduced setbacks and lot widths. And there was no PUD portion of this. There was a little bit of walking trail, pickleball court. But I didn't feel like that was the spirit of a PUD. In an easement, which was gonna be there regardless if it was a straight zone or not.
It's not like you gave that land back.
Amenities in the easement.
Do what?
The easement would be there, but the amenities inside the. easement.
Correct. Correct, but they would have way less units. I would think they would.
I think they'd end up.
The
with
setback
They'd
would,
end up with more.
no way.
I think so, because they can make the pond much smaller.
Not drastically, but I think they would gain units.
Yeah,
Their
so
lot width goes up. Quite a bit,
And the setback.
and the setback is really a big deal.
they can make their pond smaller.
They could, but I don't think the pond should count.
It'd be probably a wash. You make the pond smaller and but you'd also have larger lots, larger setbacks. It would probably,
Setbacks aren't that. much
without doing
different.
public math, it'd probably be about the same.
They're not making that much of a difference.
I think that the PUD, this is just my opinion, works well for that property because it is unique with that power line going through it. And that way they can, you know, group areas, but the issue that I do have with it is allowing 100% of, you know, of what they have as amenities in that power line to be counted towards that 25%.
Correct.
I think that should be.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's.
So how would you determine how much they could use? You just,
What do you say it was 40
because at the same time, I'm thinking,
44% of the 25.
of 25%?
So, but if it was limited to, okay, you have this, this much in a utility easement with amenities. You know, you can only use 25%, 50%, whatever of that. I mean, I wouldn't go over 50% because yes, they're providing an amenity. I mean, and that's one of the requirements in order to allow it, is to have an amenity. But
It's just a very unique parcel.
it is very, it has a lot of drainage issues, it has.
I'm curious how they're gonna get a walking trail in the swamp. There he
Up
is.
on that
way
side, no, up
below.
on that side's not.
Behind there, like dog park and all that kind of stuff, all that's.
It's,
But is there a percentage of restricted easement that if they put it, are allowed to put certain amenities in, that they could use it
50.
towards 50?
I was gonna throw 50 out there.
Well, or like floodplain, detention ponds, easements. That would be my recommendation.
They can count 50% of the easement up to how much of their open space.
I think it should only be 50% of their required green space.
So 50% of the easement up to 50% of their green space or open space.
No, I'm just saying they can use all the easement. They can use as much of it as they want, but it should, what I'm saying is it should only count for 50% of their green space requirement. So if they needed 10,000 square feet of green space, the easement was 20,000 square feet. They can only get 5,000 square feet out of that easement.
Right, so like in the Main Street mixed use version, that that entire easement is less than 50% of their required green space, so they can count all of it because it has amenities in it.
I thought they said, I'm not sure their math Is that what their math said?
Your math said it accounted for 44% of their open space.
Well, typically, you're not gonna put structures in the easement.
Right.
So,
But there's still a minute.
Like things like fences, park for dog parks, the playground equipment, I mean, those are structures.
Well,
If that's only 50% of their open space, the other open space they had was the pickleball court and the retention pond. So they would only also get to count 50% of the retention pond.
That's
pond is
right.
Big enough.
So you're gonna end up with a pond and a utility easement.
No, that's included in the max 50% calculation.
No, but if you can use a restricted utility easement up to 50% of that green space.
No. If you need 10,000 square feet, regardless of how big the easement and the retention pond is, it can only count for 5,000.
That's the same as a pond.
No, that's all lumped.
So that would be all in
It's all together.
if it's an easement, if it's a detention pond, if it's floodplain, whatever.
Wetlands.
All of that. can all be-
Even all of those together can only account for up to 50% of.
So that forces,
Talking combined.
yes, that forces lot area to be green space or open space that can have amenities on it.
And in his was 44, right? That we did earlier, it got up to 44%?
Or just the easement. The pond-
And the pond was like
Oh,
0.61.
but we didn't include the pond as
Right.
part of that. Oh, I see.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah, that easement was 44% of the overall 25%.
got you. Which is why you were saying pull back on the pond, but I thought the pond, what he did there is required based on
Yes, it is.
engineering.
Exactly, it is. And it's oversized because they couldn't fit any more units in there. So that counted 100% towards their green space
Right.
requirement too. And it was way bigger than the easement square footage.
Right.
Does that make sense what I'm putting out there? Okay.
We'll try to do examples on some of these too when we do this. Okay, so now I want to get into if we have a residential PUD. And what percent we have right now, we have 25% green space requirement. And now it's gonna be, they're gonna be limited on some of that, so that really does help that. But should they ask for a higher density? I would like to consider that whatever percentage, as the percentage of the density goes up, like if they go 10%, then they do require additional open space. Is that logical? And I'll try to work.
The thing is to get higher density, so I mean, that, if,
No, not all.
why would you have a PD if you don't have higher density? I mean.
Sometimes it's
anything
just
that
they
has higher density.
need.
I'm just trying to justify how.
Well, that's what, looking in.
So when we did that one
Yeah.
concrete plant, remind me, there was a trick there where he was asking for more, but creating more green space or more walkable trail, or it was a bigger.
He was giving concession because he was asking for more density, right? Which was like 3 or 4 houses more than the recommended. So he was saying, if you give me that, I'll give you more green space to do this with.
Like the PUD that's on that's across from the come and go. Is not about density.
Not what they can use there.
They did a PUD. It's
About use.
Yeah, because they wanted to do a mixed use in there, so rather than split up a bunch, so it's not always about density, although we've seen a couple of them.
Most of
I think 90% are the.
Most of them are.
I know.
Tony asked for an example.
I'm just saying, Tony's not wrong.
He ain't wrong.
So that makes sense now, because I had that.
But I don't disagree with the fact that there should be a combination of amenity and or space, whether it's green or open, however we want to end up defining that, as they increase that density. Because again, I think the thought process, as we talked about the PUD, was we want it to be better for the folks, in this case, residents, to be able to enjoy it. And so that's the reason I think that there should be a combination.
So is it a 1-to-1? Like if you go up 5% on your density, you go up.
That's what I was gonna run, kind of that number. That was kind of what I was looking at. 5%, but I don't know how the numbers play out on that yet.
I think we need to see how they play out, because I mean,
Well, and I think it's also gonna be different depending on if you're going vertical, if you're going horizontal.
One thing, when you go vertical, you need more green space because of that shadow. No,
yeah, I think we need to see some numbers, maybe just to think about that.
I mean, when we were talking about the PUD, there were a couple of reasons why we went towards it. One is so that if they if they changed the configuration of their lots, that would allow this open space, green space for nudity. And that was the basis of this. The other thing is, if we have a development that it's not on individual lots, like our zoning code lays out, then it allows them to place, these structures in a way that they, isn't non-conforming. I mean, it's not, yes. So it's not just individual lots continual.
It should inspire some sort of unique design.
Exactly. That's in our.
Do we state that?
In our intent statement, yes. They're encouraged. The regulations are to encourage and provide means for affecting desirable and quality development by permitting greater flexibility and design freedom than that permitted under the basic district regulations, and to accomplish a well-balanced, aesthetically satisfying city and economically desirable development of building sites within a PUD.
And I think it's just something we need to stick to our guns more on.
But that's,
Like what we've been.
that leaves a lot of
Density,
leeway.
25% is, mainly a pond. And then like on one, just because they put a commercial lot, and just like you were telling them, and that having that commercial separate, that doesn't relieve them from the 25% of the residential. And
And that's why they split that one.
yeah, because it didn't fit them anyway.
Right,
So
because there was no integration in their
But-
design.
we have done PUDs where they had no idea what they were doing on the commercial. They've been platting a little corner, and they were told that they could do 15%. And that's not what I interpret these regulations to mean. So,
I think that's where we really need to define mixed use.
yes, and so
what
then
Integration looks like.
that gets into, so with residential, if we will look at if they increase the units per acre, the density, then we'll look at increasing the green space requirement. Mixed use, well, let's just do. Okay. Commercial, if it's all commercial, it's 15% right now. Is that sufficient? And I haven't had a chance to look at, I know Bentonville's redoing theirs also. That they were starting to feel like the 15% wasn't enough. There is the 15%, and then it has also been mentioned like that would be in addition to their landscaping requirements. But it's gonna be a little bit harder. I think it's gonna be a little bit harder to. Yeah. How are we gonna separate those? As far as the plantings, we can use the landscape, but as far as the open space, I would rather go a 20% or something, and then we can, use the planting guide as the landscape.
So you're
Is that too much?
you're recommending more, a higher percentage. I like that for commercial. What, have you got any inkling from Bentonville, what their,
I haven't yet.
what's Fayetteville, do we know what Fayetteville's does?
PD problem, I'm just kidding.
No, I have not had time to look at all of them and I'm not able to get on. I have,
I think commercial
current.
Commercial can be kind of confusing as well, especially if they're going vertical or horizontal, so I think we may need to get a little more understanding what that
Yeah.
actually looks like.
We'll
I'll
look
do
at
research
that.
on cities. and look into it.
Okay. Mixed use. Okay. This is where mixed use to me, if you have lots that are commercial and they work together with the residential, that's one thing. If it's integrated, if it's just sitting on its own, to me, that is not integration.
Just put it in.
The north, the corner is integrated, right? I mean,
How is it integrated?
Corner.
the one across from the Come and Go.
Oh, yeah, Terra Rose.
It,
It's all
yes,
commercial.
it is integrated.
It's a mixed use integrated, right? And that's when I think about integrated, I mean, because they were thoughtful about where they put the daycare, where they proposed they were gonna do what, a 2-story like townhomes and then storage and then commercial up front. I mean, is that not considered?
When I
integration?
think mixed use, I think like, that stuff that they just built on Pauline Whitaker, where it's commercial on the bottom, residential on top. That's the classic definition of mixed use.
Just like we did on Walnut,
Mhm.
where, they have that commercial part of it. With- with-
On a large, my thoughts are though, on a parcel like
Yeah.
that one, you can't,
I think they both.
vertical's a
meet-
little bit different.
To me, they both meet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Intent, but what you said, if I have a commercial lot next to a residential lot, and I'm trying to get all of my benefit out of the residential lot, and it's all in a PUD, that's not integration.
Now, I will bring up that, on Highway 72, there was a time that there was a concept brought in and it had like a shopping area, and then behind it had some townhome styles. So that there was going to be a lot of commercial shopping that they could access.
So,
And to me, that was more integrated.
Is that the soccer fields? Is that where that one was at? Okay.
Yeah, we have many storage.
I mean, I agree with you.
Soccer fields? Yeah.
On the mixed use with the commercial on the bottom and residential on top, yes, I agree with that. I've seen that as well. But what you're describing mixed use is like down in Fayetteville and the affordability stuff that we're trying to do down there, and where they're trying to put mixed income families living within the same neighborhood, and they're trying to do that as well. One of the things that we're constantly going after funds for that, government funding for that. They're always asking for those issues about mixed use. How close is this to this? Is there a connection between the two via walking, via trail, via bike? And so I do think it does go beyond just the one unit downstairs, commercial, upstairs, even though we need both of that. So like earlier on this one, what I was struggling with was he was calling it mixed use, but he wanted to separate the two. And so then it's not, it's commercial and it's residential.
PUD adjacent to the commercial.
Yeah,
So I think in that case for Main Street mixed use, if they would have come with us with a plan for that commercial and showed us how it connected to the residential, that maybe would have been closer to mixed use. But since they didn't want to show us how that's gonna develop and adjacent to it, it doesn't feel like,
And that's why I kept asking, how do you plan on integrating that?
which is why they completely took it out of
They
the.
say, we're not planning on anything.
We're not gonna solve that problem tonight, but anyway. So I think mixed use can be a couple of different things. I agree with whether it's vertical or in a large parcel, I think it needs to be more horizontal type. I think there's multiple kind of definitions for what we would call mixed use.
Even like the watercolor and the restaurants up front with all the shared access, that's mixed use.
Oh, absolutely.
And it just depends on what kind of property you're looking at. Downtown where you're going vertical, yeah, the shared building with that, but when you have more land to work with, the PUD on Seba and Main Street. you know, I think it goes both ways.
Yeah.
To prove how it's integrated with their design.
Yes.
My way of determining if it's mixed use.
Write it out real quick. Okay, another thing that we're looking at is the ratio between commercial and residential. It's a little bit harder when commercial on the bottom, residential on top, and it's more layered. If it's one level, you can do the areas. We have non-residential land accounting for 10% or more of the developable area. That at least 20% of the overall project shall be designated common open space. So we're looking at 20% there where,
We'll just make it 25 and
but yeah, we've already talked about.
I don't think we need to have all these different open space requirements based on the type of
Okay.
development that's going in. I think
Make it simple.
I think the 25 might cover it, and then I do like the idea of, as you increase density over what the planned land use should be, is you start looking at it. And it doesn't, you know, maybe it's not just a straight open space increase, maybe it's how you use it, like what sort of amenities are you bringing? Is it a walking trail? Or is it like a huge playground for kids, or like a splash park? Like those are on two different levels.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because there's a whole lot of different costs associated with things, right?
It's a blanket.
So
Debo.
Across all development.
it's commercial.
Yeah.
You want 25%?
I think they all need to be the same. That would make it easy.
25% across all.
I go for that.
Yeah.
I think the new home office will probably be more than that, so
Oh, it's way more.
I don't think people should balk about 25.
Hey, that makes this all easy.
Yeah.
Well, it makes it easy for applicants or people researching too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're looking at how to calculate this open space. Open space calculations shall not include rights of way, detention ponds, parking lot landscape requirements, buildings, accessory structures, yards, or other areas not open to all owners, tenants, and customers within the PUD.
Like it. I think that's pretty,
Okay? So,
we might have to edit the detention,
yeah, I kind of wondered about that.
right?
Because we are allowing that part.
So
Detention or retention.
Oh, this is detention.
What's
We allow
detention?
here's
Right.
here's another city that has a take on it. They said this can be counted as common open space. An active detention pond that include recreational equipment / facilities, some sort of activated detention pond, if you will. But I would still lump that in with the 50% rule.
Like a soccer.
Like a soccer goal.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
softball practice, T-ball.
Yeah.
Something, and
We've played in the pond before, no, it's been there.
there's several.
I'm at Auburn.
Fishing a part of that?
That's
I mean, if you look.
Retention pond.
Oh, okay.
Dog out there.
Community center.
Yeah.
Near the
Detention.
space usage.
I think that's pretty clear. The intent is a separate defined
On flood.
usable space. Yeah. I think we need to add easement in there. We need to make the first two match. The first item we talked about on what the 50% rule is and this rule match.
Yes, and there's no more than 50% of the common usable open space in a development may be comprised of unfenced retention ponds as measured by, I don't like this, as measured by the normal water surface area.
I think it should go to top of bank.
I agree. And then I added, and include additional amenities. Amenity around the pond. We need, or
Same deal with what we just talked about, like some sort of activated.
Hmm.
Some sort of feature, recreational equipment or facilities.
okay, and then no more than. Okay, and in this, okay, it was. We did have no more than 25% of a utility or drainage easement that restricts the use of the property. Would be allowed as considered in. The open space, but now we're going to combine that with the retention pond that is.
It's already in there?
No, I'm adding it.
That was her proposed.
That was a
Oh,
proposed.
I was like, whoa, we have
Oh.
to reevaluate.
Going to. So I'm going to add that
Yeah, we're gonna lump it all together.
with no more 50% of the open space can
Should
be
be.
retention ponds and restricted easements.
That way,
Wetlands, yeah.
And
Floodplain.
To even consider those, they must have amenities provided.
something that activates it is what we're going for, right?
Sure.
Okay. Now, there's also a statement in here, no more than 50% of the common usable open space may have a slope greater than 15%. And that's kind of what I think Eric was getting at on that one. Is this something?
Cause it's really not, if you do, if it's not, well, the open space definition is usable or all unusable, usable.
What if you're preserving trees?
Usually.
Down.
You add a zip line, then
Huh?
it's usable.
Otherwise, you're gonna sprain your ankle.
Well, if you're saving tree, oh, you're saying if the existing grade is over?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's
In order to regrade it, you have to remove some trees.
like
Oh, no, we don't want
Cedar,
to.
like if it's like Cedar Ridge where it,
Yeah, where
they
it goes.
kept all the trees, but for one, because the slope was.
Yeah. It's 27 years.
I mean, can we lump that into the 50% too?
Sure.
I mean, does that make sense?
It's not perfectly usable space, is what we're finding.
Right.
Things that aren't perfectly,
All right.
like, not perfectly, but ideal open usable space should be lumped into that 50%. So we're
I
getting
think so.
percent of our
50% of,
good space.
yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Pretty simple,
That makes sense.
So obvious, right?
cut and dry.
For
I
sure.
have the wrong glasses on today. I have to keep taking them on and off. I cannot see. Okay, I think we're making a lot of progress. Okay, so
Great
that
job.
takes care of that. Okay. Good. Okay. The preservation. Maintenance and ownership of required open spaces within the development shall be accomplished by either. Dedication or deed of the easement or improvement of land. Will we also consider? I'm assuming.
Go. Go.
In here, it really states about if people dedicate public use. I mean, it talks about that these creating a permanent easement for by private documents.
Here's an excerpt for you.
Good. I added, like, if they deed a property, an open space for public use, such as the trail. I mean, they could do a trail, a public park, dog park.
So actually, the city would maintain that.
that in Here,
City would maintain that.
yes,
If it was dedicated
that-
to the public.
is what we're thinking of also, that would be allowed to be included in. Okay.
So if they wanted to put
I
a
think we'll
trailhead
just be
in.
more specific, so I want to add
Want to make a public park, we would.
that word.
I mean,
Right.
you put.
Like you said, a
trailhead in
trailhead
the
or.
First part of your entrance, and what is it, we've got one that, they're in Bentonville off 8th Street, they, did the subdivision, put a trailhead.
Oh, Kohler?
No, at Simsbury, they did that first lot off And they got a trailhead right there, people parking, and it's.
There's the one at Cooler on Eighth Street too, then.
Mhm.
No parking, unfortunately.
There's all those bus turnoffs. You could park there, I guess.
It created its own animal because there's too many people to park, so they want to park on the street.
Ride your bike.
Okay, and then these are kind of some things, well, this one's. We have discussed a statement regarding if a PUD is in phases, that the green space be proportional to each phase. Is that,
I think that upholds the intent of the PUD.
okay? And then these are just some other things within that we've had questions about. When we have a PUD and they come back and they need an amendment. Do they have to come back for a public hearing for each amendment? Does it depend on the severity? Does Jeff make that decision?
Seems-
Because there are some minor things and then we just made some changes, whatever those PUD requirements were.
No, they were recommended, right? That's what we determined on that. The parking was recommended. The last one.
Bush Road Home.
Yeah.
That was in the PUD letter, the agreement that they signed.
Right. The actual PUD called for 36.
Not the exact.
They ended up getting us
I
like.
think they had more parking than they needed.
Yes.
I think legally you have to bring it back and.
I was gonna say, I think public hearings.
I don't know why you couldn't do them all at once and then look at the revised plans after that and get it all done on one meeting. But, I mean, that has to be a public hearing, right?
That's mine.
Yeah.
Position.
I don't know how you get around that.
Okay, so like, yeah, I mean, even if they're changing a couple of parking
It's a
spaces,
rezone. I mean, you know, it's. I change it.
it's a conditional use.
Yeah, but yeah, but it's.
Depends on if they add more buildings or take away buildings.
So are you saying it's by severity?
No,
No, I was just saying a rezone versus conditional use, yeah, or variance.
Cause we've had a few PUDs come through, like. What did we do? Copper Oaks? Is that the one we just did where they didn't change the footprint of their building
Yeah.
stories and we didn't make them do a public hearing?
And Wilmer, mixed use,
Changing their density.
changing density, but not changing the footprint, just changing.
Featherstone, they came in for their PUD, they wanted to go 2 foot higher, right? On their roof line, on their
Right,
phase or whatever.
that is a change. From their approved, so would they need
Would
a
that
public hearing at that point?
It's locked, Bill.
I would say to be consistent, if they want to make a change that we should require them to do a public hearing regardless of severity.
That might also encourage people to nail some stuff down on the front end.
Front end.
okay, would like a definition, a clearly defined mixed use and what qualifies for a lower amount of, okay, so we're kind of taking care of a lot of these things with some of our. There was a comment, clearly defined green space versus open space. To me, you can have green space within an open space.
But we're aiming for open space.
The requirement is for open.
Or green space.
Like-
Green space is within that.
Yeah, cause like a plaza would be open space, but it's not green.
Got it.
Yes, you could do one that's green, but typically, it would be.
This goes back to the activated part.
Form space be the same as open space.
It should be within there.
Okay, discuss what happens when a PUD proposes several uses such as industrial, residential, and commercial. All in one development without spot zoning. Because our PUD is an overlay on top of zoning. We have a proposal that has industrial, commercial, and residential.
They got rid of the industrial. They're doing
Oh, they did?
commercial with
That
potential
condition.
condition.
Okay, so with the PUD, that would allow that condition, that would allow that conditional use. So what we are looking at is that we would need to do commercial. You still have to zone those areas within this PUD. So it's going to be a mixture. I mean, they're adjacent on this one.
140 acres.
But we didn't do that up on Main Street. And it has commercial,
For Terra Rose.
it has commercial and residential.
No, Terra Rose is strictly commercial.
Or is it-
It's all commercial.
I thought they had townhomes.
And daycare, office park.
Yeah, that's what I
Townhomes.
Theirs was.
No, they don't have any townhomes.
The gas station.
No.
I'm not just a lawyer, but this time I do.
Lawyers.
I don't remember them having
It's
any.
it's strictly commercial.
But with this, and I'm gonna.
Sorry,
give you
I
another
could have sworn
example,
they did, but.
Me too.
Is the Womack PUD where they have the commercial and the residential, and we've really, I mean, we zoned it C3. Yeah,
You zone it to the more intense use?
well, that's what, yeah,
Zone it to the more intense use. What happens when one of the uses they want is not allowed?
because actually
Yeah.
only by the PUD would residential be allowed.
Can you call it C3/PUD? Not that it's its own zoning district, but just to state that there's something different about that.
So
I think it'd be helpful to have that
I do too.
designation of a PUD on a.
Can we,
Well, we did it, when I was in Jonesboro,
Mhm.
way back when, they actually had the PUD as a zone.
Well, and that's the other option that we have.
And that took,
Establishing.
Downsides with that too, though, right?
so can we also look at maybe what Bill or Roger or some other?
They have it as their own zoning district, and that's where that limit, having the compatibility and the densities is important with that land, with the comprehensive plan, with land use plan. That's why they use it, so that they can have that zoning district, but still have that underlying net of uses and zoning.
In that case, could you do a hybrid of the sorts where you list kind of just like C3, R3 and PUD?
Are you?
It would be a PUD zoning, but in the description, you would list what it is, like what's inside of it. Or maybe that's too much. I don't know. Maybe you just call it P.
but then you're going back to what they were talking about, they want to do commercial, industrial and all that, so you have three.
It's not it's just a name.
PUD zoning just be just
I
that.
think that's easier. I was just saying, so when you look at a zoning map, you could see what's actually in there instead of just PUD. And how it interacts with the surrounding property, but I think PUD might just be easier. But I know we've had this conversation multiple times. And we've decided one way or the other.
No, we keep going with the overlay and using the zoning district as the basis for determining what criteria to use.
Is it really spot zoning though? I'm trying to wrap my.
Well, definitely. The one we're talking about, not necessarily as much, but it's still
Was when they had industrial.
kind of spotty. But like, for example, Womack mixed use. Had we done
We've done-
R4 for this part, then there would only just be like a few little tiny pieces of commercial, and that's definitely spot zone.
with that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sold, but I don't know.
But it's really a PUD, like I think you have to state that somehow in there.
Yeah, in my mind, the PUD, I don't want to say override's not the right word, but PUD
Solves the problem.
with the definition should solve the problem of a spot zone in my mind. And that's the reason that all these rules and regulations are in place to keep the compatibility and some other things in mind. Whenever we look at the overall unit development, not necessarily a spot here and a spot there. That's the way that I look at all this that we're going through, you know, trying to make sure that it's right. That's the way that I look at it, which again, in my mind alleviates the spot zone part of it.
So does that mean you're a proponent of the PUD as its own zoning district?
Not necessarily a proponent. I mean, I think, well, but if the rules and regulations are such, then you might be okay.
Really, the only thing we want to be able to use out of that is just to show that something was a PUD on the zoning map.
And, I mean, Brian, is there any problem with us putting a PUD? I mean, there's. I mean, put the zoning district and then slash PUD or something. So that it.
Jones for
it's a
downtown area.
regions. Yeah.
That's the old industrial part of town, cause old industrial was going away. So new development was coming in. Basically redoing the old part of industrial downtown where we're right there together. So that's how they're PUDs on. Yeah. We're not in that situation.
We could be.
Main Street. Yeah, you got a concrete plant right behind residential.
We got a manufacturing plant in the middle of downtown today, right?
Like,
Sorry, Brian, I disrupted your.
No, I think. You mean, answer that again? I mean,
Yes.
it's,
That's it. Yeah.
no, I think they'd have to be designated. I think it's the key. I think you guys are just gonna have to balance and figure out what's best on these, because I mean.
We talked to Bentonville and say, are there any downsides to you having your own district? And if the answer is no, then something for us to consider.
Right,
Or if the answer is yes, then I think we kind of learned from somebody that maybe has one. I don't know, and I don't know what else.
Is it like, is it deceiving at all to list what the predominant use is?
Oh.
Because we wouldn't have a predominantly used PUD that's like commercial next to residential. It would need a blend of the two, and you would need more residential than commercial more than likely. Throwing it out there.
So I'm wondering like what that in Bentonville, what their art district is right there across from like Feathers Pub or whatever that thing, they've got apartments.
I think that's just a special overlay district,
for like,
extra requirements. It's not a zoning, but they do have a special, like, they do have a zoning classification that is PUD. And that would solve this problem.
Well, that's kind of what we do. With the PUD, it's kind of like that overlay of a zoning district.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
We just don't have the ability to classify it.
Hope you got him. So
it's been history that the G.
I think the bigger question is, and I think we need to learn is how do we solve for, you know, if we go with the underlying. And then it's one, right? So let's just say it's commercial. And then within there, they want to put the 2 or 3 additional. We need to really understand any implications. So I don't know if we can learn from Bentonville or if we could talk to our friends down at North Regional Planning and try to figure out what that really looks like. And maybe we give them these 1 or 2 scenarios and see if they can help us kind of understand that a little bit more than just, you know,
The
15 of us tonight.
that does hurt us is when we have a rezone. And we have this PUD and the PUD has, you know, certain conditions. But the underlying is, you know, might be. R3 MF, which I don't, you know, and you're limited to 3 to 4 units. Attached. But yet, people don't, they see that multifamily and. We may have that 25% green space requirement that allows that density to be conforming, you know, with that area. It's just the type of structure. It's this, when they go to rezone, that I think has been a difficult part of it.
Yeah, not being able to consider the PUD with the reason.
Yeah. So I wish there was a mechanism that we could have
But
a rezone with this PUD.
That's the-
as a
that's the-
condition.
That's the solve and that's the PUD as its own zoning district. Cause that would allow you to do that.
So if you rezoned, somebody came in with a PG on with exactly that, commercial, you would just rezone the whole thing as commercial, and what would be would be a non-conforming use would actually be a conforming use through the PUD zoning.
Correct.
Right, so you could have potentially apartments in a commercial zone, right, because.
We do.
Zone.
We will.
That's what we're talking about, Tony, is how do you,
That's why I'm saying you,
That-
the most restrictive zoning, and then that way you're good.
but that's not fair either, because the most restrictive zoning?
Most intensive.
And maybe this is something that we need to go to Jim Von Tunlin or something.
Yeah.
He's like the guru of zoning, so, yeah, or Jane.
I think we need some outside advice.
Not that Brian doesn't count.
No, well, no, I mean, you're dealing with. I think any can be done, but we need to figure out what's best for us. And I mean, I don't think that's legal opinion to be able to tell you that. We need to figure out what the pitfalls are of these other.
He won't be here next meeting. We can solve it all.
Yeah, do it all, dude, please, yeah. Yeah,
Wait, aren't you hourly?
perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay,
On retainer.
I'm gonna go through here really quick. All right, R4 we had, it requires certain amenities in the code as it is. But should the amenities required in the PUD be separate? We feel like it should be. That they provide additional, because they are a higher density. That they also have to provide amenities. Is that acceptable? Is that too severe?
Does that make sense?
That's good.
Yes.
Joey's shaking his head. He's following me. I don't know.
It bothers me so much because I had that one
Okay.
that was R4MF. And all the amenities counted for
Or,
both.
They doubled, yeah.
Yeah, they double dipped with one amenity.
okay, parking.
Crazy talk, do you put that in the 50%, the required? No, okay, never mind.
And the.
Never mind.
Okay, parking requirements, we're gonna work on those, just like this one came out with
Way too many.
44 parking spaces for.
No.
No, that, I don't know.
No, they had more parking than they needed. Than they required.
Okay. Can we specify, okay, I think someone asked Brian about this. Can we specify design standards for single family developments? With consideration to the law, because state law was passed that we cannot
In a PUD?
in a PUD, since it has conditions. Can we not specify certain architectural treatment?
And it's signed by.
I thought that was part of the PUD.
And I thought it was,
I think you can. There's plenty of cities that do.
I thought it was different, that we were allowed.
We require elevations with PUDs. That's one thing I haven't seen.
Yes, we should.
We should.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
We even touch on architectural treatments in PUDs.
Yeah, I don't think we do. I think we need to,
Most that we do right
know
now,
what it's gonna look like.
that we have been doing is that it just has to conform to the design standards that are listed. I mean, most of the time they go with elevations and they're like, but
Well, we should be bringing them,
yeah.
you all should.
I would like to see
That's
Yeah.
part of
What it's gonna look like.
Yeah. Okay, because that has been requested that come to you.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Require as a requirement for
Before.
PUD. For elevation. I think that's a
Single family
requirement
homes.
of Bentonville's PUD.
Yeah, single family homes, you can,
Yeah, 100%.
Even if it's in-
Required in a large scale.
If it's signed, you know, I went round and round. About this one day. Because it's basically not a signed contract, but a signed agreement.
that they're consenting to, it, yeah.
I mean,
Then that's one of those things that, we can until we're sued.
We can until we can't.
Right.
Okay, then they can go to a straight zoning. Cause there we can. We're
Where,
not gonna dictate residential architectural treatments or anything like that in a straight zoning.
in a straight zone.
So if it's a big deal, they can just go back to straight zoning and get all the complications that come with that, that they wanted to avoid.
Okay, and we used to require the large scale development plans, preliminary plans with the PUD. It ends up, if there's any changes, and they have to change all their plans, so we've been doing a concept. And site plan, the landscape plan, so you can see those. Is that acceptable? How we've been doing it with the PUD so that you can see what they're proposing without doing the full
Yeah.
set of plans.
Yeah, we should encourage it's,
I'd like to see conceptual elevations.
yeah,
We'll do that. I've got that down. Along with. Okay. Should we have specific landscape requirements laid out for PUDs?
You're asking the wrong person.
I think we.
Above and beyond what we finally get for our,
I think it's a match. I don't know why.
So we just need to reference.
We just need to get our normal landscape ordinance approved.
Okay,
Settle for that.
okay. And then we're gonna work on the parking spaces. I'm looking down at Alan's comments now. Sign.
If he's not here, his comment doesn't count.
Procedure may cover question or concept meeting. Oh, there was a question, if a concept meeting should be required. I think it should be strongly recommended, but I don't know that we have that requirement for even a development.
Wouldn't require it, but they can, it would
Definitely.
benefit them at their own risk, because if they come in without talking to you first and come straight to us.
And I think that probably comes from Bentonville requiring, in their process. They do require that before any project comes, that they have to have a pre-development meeting with the staff. We don't have that requirement. Okay, it says we had things that should be included in concept in the sub LSD code that we should add to this concept if kept.
I don't know what you meant.
Okay,
That doesn't even make sense.
I was like,
okay, I'm gonna,
I think it should be.
I think what it's saying is we require a concept plan, so we need to make a list of what things are required for that concept plan.
Oh, gotcha.
That's not bad. That's,
Easy peasy lemons.
yeah. Okay, and that goes through the end of what we need from you all. I think I'm gonna make something up.
I was happy that I was able to find the one you wanted to discuss in the folder.
Yeah.
I did.
Get 'em.
I
just couldn't get linked on, connected into.
I'll hook you up.
Speaking of which, what's up with the playground?
Yes.
Okay. We'll just have to come back. I won't be here at the next meeting. So maybe we'll
Yeah, let's gonna do it.
have something for you all to be able to go through that's kind of cleaned up. This is not a
That's for the
cleaned
PD.
up. It's for the PD. All right, and then what's the next thing?
Diamond Estates
Yeah.
Playground.
All right, Diamond Estates Playground. It's gonna have to wait till the 20th also. The playground is in the ground in the middle of the lot. We've looked at possibly parking around. Like kind of like Maple Estates with their clubhouse, how they have the parking lots coming off the street. And that seems to be functioning okay. So what I asked them,
Public?
pardon?
Public? Maple is this a public playground?
Well,
I mean, Diamond is.
Neighbors.
It's not a gated community.
Gated community.
You could,
it's on a private lot. It's not owned by the city. It's private, yes.
But if you wanted to take your kids over there, they're probably not gonna ask you where you live.
I don't know. There might be one, but might ask.
I mean. This guy.
But, we've also, I mean, there's some short areas there. They've said that a lot of people drive golf carts. So maybe some short, some places for golf carts to park and also bike, bike racks. So I've asked, this was requested that they submit a minor site improvement application before they even did the playground. There was a missing communication between who Donna and I were speaking to and the developer.
You know better.
And so the developer was told, yes, it's a go, and they did it. And so
He knows
here we are, here we are. And so I told him, I said, I'm just looking for a solution to the problem. To get what is, good.
Well, is the parking in our right of way? Because you said it's on private property, right?
Part of it will be on our right of way. Half of it will be in our right of way, and then the other half of it will be into there. Now the parking off the street.
So in our right of way, use the regular parking guidelines and let them do whatever they want to on their property.
Mhm.
And is it that simple?
I guess the issue came from, they designated that lot as could be parking later, and then they just went.
Well, they want to
This-
do their
Okay,
part on their own.
all right. We'll go back. The clubhouse in Diamond. It was built and it's kind of in a corner lot. It's around a curve and then there's clubhouse and then there's one lot on the corner. They they talked to the planning commission and said, you know, we want people to be walking to this, you know, biking to this. So they only put in 7 parking spaces and a handicap, I think. And then the water and sewer department had said, you know, they could park in front of our lift station gates. But it is rough rocks and it's downward. So what was decided is that they would reserve that one lot. And it would be looked at later when the subdivision was built. It was built out that, or not built out, but completed. That they would determine whether.
Sounds like they,
It's never been actually determined.
sounds like they determined.
Yeah, they determined. And, you know, I mean, it was the homeowners association that made that evaluation. Do we want parking or do we want a playground? And then we start getting complaints of someone who didn't feel like her voice was heard, or possibly others. I don't, they can tell you all of them.
What is the
know what
problem? Are they required parking?
the problem is. Well, the-
That's right. Do we have code that like tells us we can make them do parking?
well, we do with it within a type of an assembly. Or with all the other clubhouses, we require parking.
They have
We don't have all
at the
just on the
clubhouse,
street. Pardon?
parking at the clubhouse.
They have 7 spaces, though. It's not the typical requirement that. we use.
Is that our issue or theirs? Does it impede fire access?
This is our problem because we said you can have this little amount of parking for now, but later you need to come back and confirm that you had enough parking. Is that why?
Yeah, that's our fault.
Yeah,
sure.
that's a us problem because
For
that's what
sure.
we said. That's why it's back to us.
I just wonder if we're gonna make them change though. I mean, I don't. We're probably not gonna make them tear out the playground, are we?
I would,
No,
Nope, not.
I
so.
don't think we want to.
I mean, I think that you can get some parking. They wanted to put some trees or, you know, something around the playground area. You know, do some landscaping.
But you also,
I think that you would be able to get some parking spaces off of the street.
So the HOA though is one who's putting the playground in and
Well,
they'll pay
the HOA went to the developer because the developer still holds the majority of the acres. So they went to them and because they had been told that there was going to be a playground on this lot. Others were told that it was being reserved for parking. So that's within,
Is there a parking issue at the clubhouse?
there is. Apparently, I don't know exactly. I haven't been, that's where we haven't even had the chance to use.
That's kind of their fault,
Yeah.
their neighborhood for not providing enough parking for their people, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's again, back to my.
100%. Like I said, you got the roadway, you got the property.
Yeah, are we really gonna make them make a change? That's my question. And, or do we just need to let people voice their opinion?
Point their POA in their building.
I mean, that's the way that I look at it, but
Okay, well, the planning commission had made the decision to require that reserved lot. Or to look at if it was needed for future parking, because the parking requirements were not made for the clubhouse. So that's kind of the decision. Is this lot needed? Is there additional parking needed? That's where it's coming back to you all.
How were we ever supposed to revisit that?
And
Actually,
how are we able to require parking on private property?
Well, we require
You're
parking.
saying the lot is private, right? So if you're saying,
it's parking for the clubhouse.
And then,
I'm going back to the whole thing of, is it city property or is it not? If it's city property, it's our problem. If it's not city property, their problem. That's-
When they built the clubhouse, they didn't want to put in any parking.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, that's,
the other, so let me answer the different. When we look at a structure.
Yeah.
We always, there's a parking requirement based off of that structure. In this case, there was an exception made, and I don't remember it, but there was an exception made. So technically, I guess that's where it would fall into whether we made the decision or didn't make the decision. I mean, yes, we allowed the exception. I'd have to go back and see all the language around what it actually said we would review in the future, but to your direct question, when we look at anything that's being built, we look at the required amount of parking spaces based on.
the same thing like like a LSD, right? We looked at the stuff. So with the decision that was made, done. I mean, you can't go back and.
Well, we need to understand the language. If the language truly says that we would be a part of that decision, then we may have to look at it. I don't know. I would need to go back and see, I guess, exactly what it said and if we're if we need to have a conversation or not.
At this point in time, my opinion is that they've kind of forced our hand because we didn't reevaluate it, right? I don't think it's right to make them tear down a playground that their HOA paid for because of their own parking needs. That's my opinion on it.
I think where Lorraine is coming from is that it's not about having to clear down the park, it's that there's an area where there could be parking that we could ask them to add without tearing down the park.
So how do we evaluate if there's a need for parking?
I mean, it comes from the people that are asking for more parking, right?
But there's not a number.
We're not gonna meet the required parking.
Right.
Typically,
3 stalls worth.
calculation that we use for clubhouse.
Okay. Yeah, but we're not gonna get anywhere close to that.
Oh, no.
Right, so 3-4 stalls worth.
Well, no, I mean, you could get more than that. You may be able to get 8 or 9 and then on the inside. I don't know. That's where we've got to lay it. That's where they've got to lay it out.
Okay.
See what they can do. Because what I understand, I mean, the parking, it's on a curve also, so that limits it. There's on that side, there's also the mailboxes. So then people have to park on the other side of the houses. And they don't like everyone parking in front of their houses.
On public
And-
right away.
Sure, it's because that clubhouse is in a,
My neighbor.
there's just not.
It sounds like it sounds like some internal discussion as well, but anyway.
The HOA, I mean,
Sounds like the POA and the builder.
they're gonna have to, yeah, I know, I mean, they'll have to walk. That's what was presented.
And so what are we asking for?
Hmm?
What are we asking for?
I'm asking for a site layout on if they can fit in any additional parking. Or what they are going to propose. We had originally asked for them is to give us a proposal of what they wanted as far as parking and playground.
Mhm.
Because we understood that it was going to be both. That they were going to add some parking along with a playground. And then it went all playground.
I feel like we really missed the boat on the front end on that.
Now I don't remember this one. Sleep lately. Maybe it was past Kayla's bedtime or something. I'm just kidding.
It was past the 8:30 alarm.
All right, I'm gonna let Bill speak.
I just got one quick thing. I don't think it made it to the agenda, but we do have a council work session on Monday, 22nd. We've been working with regional planning on the comprehensive plan. They are coming back. It'll probably be the last time they come back. Then I think we're gonna be forwarding it to the planning commission, but we'll let you know if that's what's decided. You know, I think we're gonna look at these plans.
6 o'clock,
6 o'clock right here.
22nd.
And all of you are invited.
Next Monday.
That's all I have.
Seems like I have a conflict, but I'll let you know.
Well, we have a conflict on Tuesday. That's why we're doing it Monday. Anyway, that's what you know.
And you all should have received a meeting invitation to that, so.
Do this. You do a simple.
The work session.
Cool.
And so the agenda that I have up here is not apparently the newest and greatest agenda.
The, our next planning commission meeting is 6/6. And if you can't be here, let us know. And the next council meeting will be 6/13, and there's a tech review on 5/25. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved.
Take a vote.
Anybody opposed?
I'd like to circle back. I'd like to